to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, city facilities will not be open to the public to attend council meetings and/or committee meetings until further notice. The public may submit written correspondence regarding agenda matters by email to clerks@richmondhill.ca. All written correspondence has to be received by 12 noon yesterday, the day before the meeting, have been included in the agenda. Any correspondence received yesterday after that deadline has been sent electronically to us, the members of council. So we do have your comments. Electronic delegations since April 22nd, our last meeting, the public has been able to apply to appear an electronic delegation by video conference or by telephone. Anyone who applied to appear as an electronic delegation by noon yesterday have been included in the agenda. Delegates are reminded to please mute your microphone and/or your phone or turn off video until it is your turn to speak. So that is where we go. I can then explain at the start of the delegations. I guess I can, if everyone there is a delegate, then I'll read this too while we're waiting. So at the start of the delegations, as you know, is in the 11th part of the agenda, we're going to hear our first delegation. I will call all delegations to speak in order of the agenda that we have before us. Please make sure that your microphone is not muted when you begin speaking. Every registered delegation will be provided 5 minutes to speak. The clerk will announce when you have 1 minute left and when your time is up. After your delegation, I will ask members of council if they have any questions of your delegation. If members do not have any questions, or after all the questions have been asked, your delegation is over as normal. Please sign off Zoom or hang up the phone when your delegation is over. You can watch the rest of the meeting from our live stream, and the clerk may remove any delegate who does not sign off Zoom. It's like walking away from the podium in the regular thing. So that is all of our, I guess, understanding of how this is going to go forward this morning. And I guess we're still waiting for, Mr. Clerk, we're still waiting for 2 members of council.
Just one member of council, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli is not signed on yet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, I think, what timing is it?
It's 9:37 according to the clock I have. So
I had problems getting in. Took me 20 minutes. So okay. he may have the same. So let's give him a bit of a break if you can.
That's okay.
I haven't spoken to him. I'm just giving you a heads up. Just if you can give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. Yes, let's wait another couple of minutes for him, because as we begin, it's the call to order the national anthem, which I know he's something of in any council announcements. And so I think we need to, if we can, take a round number, 9:40. How's that?
certainly, Mr. Mayor, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we can rise for the national anthem, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will just give us a second to queue up the national anthem.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Next, any council announcements, please? Just, no, I don't see anybody with a council announcement. Okay, moving on to the introduction of emergency time-sensitive matters. Is there anyone?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to make an announcement.
Okay, go ahead. Please just put up your hand. I can see everybody's face. That's the thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to report that we had a very successful town hall discussion. Obviously, you were co-hosting with me, and we had great participation from our residents. Lots of questions coming in, and I just really want to thank our fire chief, Steve Kraft, the newly sworn-in police chief, Jim McSween, and of course, Dr. Kurji, the York Region Medical Officer of Health, for all of his valuable insight that he gave and medical expertise that he brought to the discussion. I think it was extremely helpful, and a lot of residents gained some value in understanding what we're doing as a council and what the
No other announcements? Can you hear me? Thank you. Jeez. I need somebody to wave at me or something if you want something. So, any emergency time-sensitive matters the members wish to bring up? Put your hand up, please, so that I can see you then and know. Seeing none, okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda that is before us, as is this point in time? Councillor Chan, Councillor Silovitz. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof. Members of council. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk. At this point in time, we'll adopt the previous council minutes. And there are 3 council minutes of which I would put together. council meeting 1320 held on April 22nd, special council meeting 1420 held on April 22nd, and special council meeting 1520 for April 29th. Could I have a mover and a seconder for those motions? Councillor Silovitz, secondary, please. Thank you. Councillor West. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Now, in identification of the items requiring separate discussion, I am going to bring forward 12.6, which is the matter of the LPAT and KDA. And at the time of discussion, I am going to step aside, give the chair to Deputy Mayor Paula, and then I will discuss it at that time. This will be after, when a discussion time comes, after all of the delegations. So just so you know, 12.6 is one that I will bring forward at that time. Any others, members of council, wish to bring forward at this time? And please just put your hand up and give me a number. I see none at that point in time. All right. So in this case, then we will adopt the remainder of agenda items. Now, Mr. Clerk, are we okay if I don't read them all out, that we know which ones that are being adopted? The ones that.
I can read out the numbers, Mr. Mayor, for you.
Okay, go ahead then.
Items 12.1, 12.2, 12.4, 12.5, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, and all the bylaws can be adopted on consent.
Okay, so with that, mover and seconder, Councillor Silovitz, Councillor DePaula, Deputy Mayor DePaula, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. So they are now here. We have no public meetings at this point in time. And we do have a presentation at this point in time. Darlene Joslin, Acting Commissioner of Community Services, regarding recreation, culture, and parks operations. Ms. There you are. Ms. Joslin, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. It's great to see you this morning. It's been 2 months since we activated our Emergency Operations Center, closed all our facilities to the public, and canceled all of our spring recreation and culture programs. So today's presentation will provide an update on the decisions that we will be making in the next 2 weeks with recommendations for Council's consideration. Before I proceed with the presentation, I do want to acknowledge the hard work of all the staff here at the city, and specifically within the Community Services Department. These staff have worked incredible hours to keep our community safe, to continue with our essential work, respond to emergencies, communicate with our residents and our members of council as we work through those provincial orders, responding to inquiries and keeping up the work of our community. So I'm extremely proud of all of those staff. Next slide. So just to remind council of the timeline, on March 13th, we actually closed our facility and our initial cancellation of our programs and events. We declared a state of emergency on March 20th. We canceled all our spring recreation, culture programs and events on March 25th to the end of May into June. We closed all our parks and amenities on March the 26th. And on April 2nd, we extended our closures to May 31st and event cancellations to June 30th. On April 22nd, we've launched our Stay Active at Home website where staff have been working hard on keeping our residents busy and active in their homes. And I will say, I'm very proud of this site. We've had emails come in to us from teachers in the Board of Education and daycare providers that are providing essential services to say that they look forward to this website every day in their own work environments. Next slide. The recovery principles that we've been working on is the priority of health and safety, of course, is first and foremost the safety of our staff and the safety of our community. All of our recommendations consider where services, programs, and activities are offered. Another key principle that we're aligning all of our activities to is, of course, the provincial orders and the public health guidelines. We're adapting service delivery where possible. Through the COVID crisis, we've been offering the Rec at Home program and weekly programs through the Richmond Health Centre for the Performing Arts. And of course, we continue with our communication to staff, public, and our residents, and we continue to track and monitor the impacts of COVID and the financial impacts that we're facing. Next slide. Today's presentation and recommendations will cover and focus on our recreation and culture facilities moving forward, our parks amenities, registered programs, city-led events, and our theater operations. In terms of the recreation facilities, we are recommending that we continue closure until the province determines that it is safe to reopen, and we will cancel all permits accordingly. All memberships, such as fitness memberships, etc., will continue to be on hold until those facilities reopen. Members will not be charged during this time, and those memberships will be extended appropriately once we reopen. Before we open any of our recreation facilities, we will make sure that there are measures in place that will protect staff and the community. We recognize that recreation will look very different in the future. What is that experience when you walk through the front doors? You go into the fitness facility to work out. You go into the pool to swim. You go into the gym to participate in a sport program. You go on to a soccer field in our outdoor facilities. So we recognize we have a lot of work ahead before we can reopen at any point in the future. Next slide. I wanted to highlight for council that, you know, it's a tough task ahead to open up these recreation and culture facilities. In terms of the swimming pools, I want to remind council that those pool facilities are governed by the Ontario Public Health regulations, and they cannot open without the authority of the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care and recommendations of the Life-Saving Society. So although we may be reopening recreation facilities at a snail's pace in the future, the pools may be one of the last features that we're able to engage. Next slide. The big decision that we have to face in the next week or two is how we're going to proceed with our summer programs and our summer day camp programs. These provincial orders continue to be in place with groups of 5 or less, and the province extended that emergency order and those provincial orders to June 2nd. If changes in provincial legislation allows us to reopen our facilities at any point before the fall, staff will recommend that we continue with some of our drop-in programs. But I did want to highlight for council that registration for our registered summer programs, so this is not summer camp, but our registered programs, begins on May 27th. It's important that we make a decision prior to May 27th before the residents can engage through the ActiveNet system with registration so that we're able to get appropriate communication out to our residents about alternatives that we may have in place. And to start to engage in the refunds and or credits that are going to come as a result. The registration for our summer day camp has been ongoing since February. We currently have close to 8,000 children registered in our day camp program. And we have a number of anxious parents that have been calling in to see where our decisions are and how we're going to proceed in this respect. I certainly do not foresee us running day camps, certainly not in the way we've done it traditionally in the past, starting in the month of July at minimum. And those day camps are going to look very different if we're able to open and offer them at all. I have set up a networking group with the applicable staff in all recreation services with Markham and Vaughan, and with guidance from York Region Public Health and Parks and Recreation Ontario as we look further into this, so that we are able to make some of those decisions together, and we're following the same processes. We can't have a pool open in Richmond Hill and closed in Markham. In terms, again, of camp, that's our biggest concern right now, and the reason that we're notifying council today that decision is going to come fast and likely come next week. Next slide. In terms of city-led events, it's probably comes as no surprise to council that staff are recommending that we cancel all of our summer events for 2020, including Canada Day, Rib Fest, concerts in the park, moonlight movies. The decision on the Santa Claus parade will be made during the summer months, but it's unlikely at this point, if things don't change and a vaccine is not readily available, that we'll be offering that event either. You heard yesterday about our CNE who has canceled that event, leading us up into Labor Day weekend, and all the major festival events throughout the province have been canceled. Staff are networking in terms of Canada Day and perhaps some concerts and moonlight movies. Staff are networking with other municipalities in the region of York to perhaps undertake a virtual Canada Day event, providing our local residents with a Canada Day experience, and also providing an opportunity for local entertainers and businesses to be involved in that virtual event. We're looking, the details of that event aren't finalized yet, but we are targeting it to be a 1 to 5 p.m. Event, and offering a variety of different activities for the families to participate in. And the cost of that virtual event can more than be covered within our existing operating budget.
Can't hear. Who's speaking? I'm sorry, I can't hear anything.
Should I continue, or I can't hear Deputy Pirelli. Okay.
Hello, I can't hear. I couldn't hear a question, or I couldn't hear an answer, and I wasn't sure who was talking. Sorry. Now I understand it's Councillor Pirelli. So we're going to. What's happening?
So I can continue, and hopefully if the deputy mayor has a question, he can get his sound fixed. And
yeah, okay.
I just have a couple more slides to go. Next slide, Ryan, please. In terms of the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts, with the provincial announcement to reopen the economy in phases, there was no clear definition of large gatherings, as you know, and we're still under the 5 or less in terms of grouping. So we're recommending the following changes for the Performing Arts Center. There's a Jazz in the Plaza event that takes place every Tuesday during the summer months, and we're recommending that we cancel that for 2020. In terms of the theater season preview, we normally would have previewed our 2020-2021 season the first week of May. At this point in time, we're having difficulty confirming our next season because we are not able to confirm a lot of the artists due to the uncertainty of COVID-19. So we're recommending that we postpone that launch until we're able to get more information in terms of hopefully reopening in the fall, and that we'll launch that season preview perhaps digitally at our first opportunity. We're also recommending that all of the theater rentals and shows continue with the cancellation until at minimum the 1st of September.
Revenue.
Next slide, Brian. Last slide. So in terms of the parks amenities, I know all members of council have received calls and inquiries about parks. We did close all of our parks amenities until May 31st. We're recommending that we continue the closure of those park amenities until the province declares that it's safe for us to reopen. And then based on that provincial order, we also reopened our community gardens. In fact, they're open as of today. So we've put some safety measures in place. The garden plots have been completely spoken for. And Anne-Marie and her team have done a great job working with the community and with the parks operations staff to get that service back in place for all the good reasons and the benefits that the provincial government spoke to. Staff, in terms of the gardening interest that we've had from the community, we've also implemented a number of gardening tips and videos and workshops that encourage residents to work in their backyards for all the healthy benefits that that provides. And that's on our home activity page. The Healthy Yard program continues with the annual garden sale. And we have sold 300 rain barrels, 300 composters, and 2,500 trees, shrubs, and wildflowers. So that program ended on May 8th, and I'm happy to report that it was a resounding success. And the last slide is the recommendation slide for council that this presentation be received and that council support the recommendations and the decisions that we need to make in the next week in the Recreation and Culture Division. I will let council know that, of course, city staff will continue to monitor the evolving COVID-19 situation along with public health advice and explore our summer or late fall reopening in park services and events. We have already commenced a York Region network specific to recreation on how we are going to be able to reopen those facilities safely with all those safe measures in place. And of course, getting advice from the York Region Public Health Unit. Decisions in terms of recreation will come quickly. They will come with restrictions and they will likely be in effect when where programs and services will be assessed against the new provincial orders in terms of numbers of people in a group, in terms of social distancing, safe distancing, what have you. We will continue to expand the recreation at home activities, and we're investigating, as I mentioned earlier, virtual events to hope that our residents will have some enjoyable experiences in the next few months. And that's the end of my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so there is a request for recommendations or the one that was on the screen. So I would like to put that on the agenda and then we can ask questions and deal with anything that we wish to ask. Councillor Silowitz and Councillor DePaula, you're for moving and seconding the request. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So is there any, at this point in time, then let's deal with questions we may have. It's now active. Councillor Silowitz is first and then Councillor Paulo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Interim Commissioner Jocelyn, thank you very much for all your work putting this presentation together. I don't have any questions per se. I just want to take this opportunity to, on behalf of all Ward 5 residents, thank you and community services, public works operations are certainly part of the vanguard of community operations through this time. And I just wanted to thank you for everything that is being done. I continuously hear from residents who are very thankful that we do have our public works staff out there, and they are continuing what they need to do, and that includes also the bylaw staff as well. So I realize that this is difficult for everybody, but I'm pretty sure that the majority of our residents realize and understand that these measures have to be taken. And unfortunately, I would venture to say that this year perhaps is lost, where we have any kind of community services and events. I like the idea of a virtual Canada Day. I think that'll be wonderful for everybody, as long as no one sets off any fireworks inside their homes or their gardens and without a permit. I think that it would be another wonderful opportunity for us to all come together and celebrate a day that's going to be very different than any of us have ever really known, I think, in our lifetimes. So from me, again, just thank you. It's my pleasure to move this. And to all our staff out there, thank you for everything that you are doing. You are invaluable, and the tasks you continue to do on our behalf and for our residents are immeasurable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DePaulo, seconder. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll echo those comments. Definitely our gratitude to all the Parks Department, the special event staff who, prepare. I'm sure there's a lot of work that have been done that's been canceled on events that are now having to be canceled. So it's disappointing, but I think we can re-envision these different events and improve them and come back next year and have wonderful Canada Day and all, kind of make up for it in 2021. Now, I just have one question. I was happy to move receipt and support the recommendations, but Commissioner Jocelyn, is there a reason why we couldn't begin with events again on Monday, May 31st, and have Sunday, August 30th is the last day, and start on the Monday again with events? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the city-led events that I mentioned in my presentation, being Canada Day, Rib Fest, Concerts in the Park, and Moonlight Movies, all take place during the months of July and August. So I'm not recommending cancellation quite yet of the Santa Claus Parade, which takes place in November. But all those other events I mentioned are summer events, and they attract over 1,000 people each. So
yeah, no, my question is specifically, I have an event scheduled for August 31st, and it's a Monday, and I'm asking if it's an arbitrary day that you're picking, could it not be one day earlier? Because this is cleared. It's not a public event where where mass amounts of people will be gathering. It's a golf tournament by invitation. Is it possible that we change this by one day?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm certainly amenable to having the recommendation that we cancel all of our events up to and including the end of August. And then we'll come back at a later date regarding any events September 1st and beyond.
Yeah, well, what I was asking is that August 31st and beyond, that we begin, is there anything, Commissioner,
Because of the days.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the city does not have any events planned. So I'm happy to say as of August 30th, if that works for council, and that will come back.
I'd like to, if the mover is okay with that, I'd like to receive the report And yeah, and just change it to, we'll close everything until August 30th.
That's fine.
Councillor
I'm
Schill?
okay with that as long as there is an understanding, Councillor DePaolo, that more than likely you will have to probably cancel that event. So, I mean, just as long as there's that understanding that it's not confirmed.
Sure. It'd have to meet all the other guidelines. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Sorry, Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Acting Commissioner Joslin and to all of your staff. They are certainly doing a great job in the entire department in Public Works. And I do appreciate the presentation. I think it was as definitive as one can be during this time where things are not all that clear as to what's coming down the road towards us. I do appreciate the fact that we're following all of the York Region Public Health and provincial guidelines. I think there needs to be a consistency in all of the GTA communities as to, as much as possible, because the message gets out and the message falls across municipal boundaries. So I'm glad that we're doing that. So thank you. I would ask one thing, and it's a small detail, but I think it's important. I think it's important that we further refine and evolve the message that we're talking about with parks, because I think that what I hear in your presentation is that we are closing the park amenities, but the parks themselves are actually okay for walk-through traffic if all of the physical distancing and other measures are being complied with. And I think that I'm getting feedback from residents, and have since we closed these amenities, that we are as clear as we possibly can going forward about what the closures mean and what is not closed and is still possibly accessible under a set of circumstances. So please ask that, I would please ask that the communication staff do whatever they can to make sure that that happens. I also appreciate the fact that we're exploring the things that we can offer and suggest and help to facilitate for people to do at home. I will just give a shout out to the theater on their a part of presentations on Thursday. I mean, it's that first one especially was just unbelievable. And I mean, I know it's short and so on, but it really is, well positioning the theater as being still the cultural epicenter of Richmond Hill, and kudos to them. And I look forward to other presentations that are to come. But I really hope that we will be exploring creatively, and in the networking that you're doing, see whatever we can do at home to support people doing things like gardening or other activities that they can do at home, being physically fit. All those things are really, really important right now. And I really think that if there's anything that we can offer to help this, we would really be showing leadership. And I know that you'll do it, but I want to offer you my support in that endeavor. And I guess the last thing I would say to just wrap up, clearly we're going to have to be flexible. It's unbelievable actually to me that, 1 week looks different than the next week and the next week and the next week, because things are changing. And I believe we're starting to get into more of a plateau in our understanding of how quickly things are changing. But as was alluded to at the beginning of this conversation, I think we need to make as definitive a plan as we can, which I think what you've presented is. But I think that, going forward, we also need to understand that we don't know what the future holds here. We still are really in our uncharted waters. So anyway, I support the recommendations. I would ask to have that input that I've given you taken seriously, because it does come, I think, from residents. And, we'll go forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Please, hands up. Opposed? No. Oh, there it is in front of us, folks. So I think everybody's agreeing with that motion, and we've kind of passed it anyway. So thank you. Okay, next we are going to delegations. Now, the first delegation is Brian Seath, and this is on 12.3, which is the Belco Developments on Performance Drive. And it was for any requests for any comments. No one had any comments. We've actually dealt with that matter, and I'm not sure whether Mr. Seath or Seth wishes to speak.
Seath. No, that's great, Mr. Mayor. I was just kind of in the background in case council members or yourself have any questions, but since there are none, I'm happy that it's approved. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. It is a little, everything's different we do now, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Seth.
Thanks
Thank you.
again. Bye
Good
now.
day. Be safe. Okay, our next delegate is, and they are all on item 12.6. being
Right, Mr. Mayor?
Bernard, yes.
Do you need this Councilor Liu, do you need a motion for the item 12.3, Balco, even though I don't?
We approved it.
Oh, yeah, actually, Mr. Mayor, no, we did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we dealt with it.
Apologize, it was held, so we just do need a motion just to move this item forward. As said,
Okay,
recommendations.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm happy to move the staff recommendation.
Okay, seconder, please. Thank you. Paula, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'm sorry. I thought it was left when he had no comment. So I'm sorry. I thought that was part of the thing. All right, let's get back. 11.2, we have a number here from, as I say, from the Young Bernard KDA development area. And this is Matthew Piazza. Sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm speaking about the Bernard KDA plan proposed today, and for the record, I do oppose it. You've heard all the arguments, I'm sure by now. I could mention that the high schools in the area are overcrowded and have portables. I could mention that the CBC declared Richmond Hospital the most overcrowded in Ontario, not just the region, but in Ontario. I could mention that there is zero precedent for this proposed density in this neighborhood, which is made up of predominantly single-family homes. I could mention that this transit hub we're discussing has one bus stop going north and one bus stop going south. I could mention that in a time of a global pandemic, we are talking about housing thousands of people in a very small and contained space. I can mention that in a time where climate change is on every government's mind, this proposed density allows for zero green space. Instead, I will mention that this meeting is being held in a time when the province is in a state of emergency. This meeting is being held when people's first and only priority is the safety and well-being of their loved ones. I will mention this meeting is being held away from the personal public eye, and the decision such as the one to have this meeting was made behind closed doors. Through you, Mr. Chair, and all council members, is this becoming how Richmond Hill treats its great residents? Virtual meetings, making big decisions when the residents are only focused on their health, making big decisions when residents such as myself, who have lived in the ward for over 30 years, cannot have our say in person. Is this the Richmond Hill we want to build and be a part of? Thank you and stay safe.
Is there any comments? Or I shouldn't say comments. We're not dealing with comments at this point. Any questions of Mr. Piazza at this point in time while he's at the desk here?
Mr. Mayor, I just said again, is this the Richmond Hill we want to build and be a part of?
Yes,
all
sir.
all the reasons I mentioned before. That's my only really question. Thank you.
Okay. All right, no, we're asking whether anybody has any questions of yourself, and I understand what your question was, yes. Okay, nope, there's no one wishing to, at this point in time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We'll now go to Sherry Zhang. Mothberry.
Me to share screens, but anyway, I'll continue my speech. Good morning, mayors and councilors. Let me start my video. I'll continue without the video. Can everyone hear me first? Hello?
Yes, yeah, everybody's nodding, yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, mayors and councilors. I was there 1 year ago opposing the motions from Tom Wunsch about 37 stories. If you remember, at that time, I talked to everyone, and this proposal, it was not building a community, it was building a jail, because the design has no road to going in and out. You are building a jail. And I'm not exaggerating, because the network you are providing for those high rises is not enough for them to move around and go even out to the Young Street. And now I look at the revised one, you are just making the jail higher. And you are not setting the limit for how high the jail is gonna be. So I have an example for you. You are removing a speed limit right now, okay? Without the speed limit, for example, on the highway, you have 100 speed limit. Now what you are doing, you're removing the speed limit. Tell the people you can drive as much and faster you can, as long as you don't hit anyone. This is what you are doing right now, okay? And during the COVID-19 situation, you are putting this one on schedule. So I have to tell you something related to the COVID-19 data. Okay, Richmond Hill, right now, we're doing pretty good. We only have 205 cases up to yesterday. And compared to the Toronto, downtown Toronto, they have 7,775 cases, COVID-19. And compared to population, Toronto is 15 times of what Richmond Hill have right now. But the cases they had is 38 times. So we are doing greater job. And I want you to compare another data from Toronto's population to New York. Toronto, we have 3 million people. New York, they have about 18 million people, which is 6 times. We have 7,700 cases in Toronto, but in New York, they have 191,000 cases in New York, which means that's 24 times of what happened in downtown Toronto. So why? Because of its density. Density, it causes people, they cannot get away from those deadly diseases. So this proposal was done before the COVID-19. After the COVID-19, can we just sit down and do a better proposal to build a future for Richmond Hill people? So welcome the people can come to Richmond Hill to live there safely, happily together. Why you are proposing this high density in this COVID-19 situation? So I just don't understand. And then some of you said, okay, provincial government, federal government give you pressure on this situation. But look at what the provincial and the federal government are doing. They are putting the people's safety at the first priority. But I hope you do so as well. They would rather sacrifice economy, shutting down stores and closing all the business, give the people the money to stay home. Why? Because people's health should be in the first priority. I think Richmond Hill government should do so as well. So after this crisis, you should look back and see what kind of housing is suitable for to stay in future. If your vision is in 20 years after, you should see this will come here accident. It will come again. a new virus. We never know. Today is COVID-19. Tomorrow can be COVID-25 or can be COVID-30. We never know. We should be prepared for another deadly diseases to come for this another pandemic in the future. Your vision should be there. So in that way, we should provide more affordable houses with private entrance, not those condos. You have to take the elevators to go all the way up. Now you can only, in this pandemic, you know, a lot of condos, in elevator, you can only have 2 people in each elevator. Some even not possible. So people can have to walk all the way, all the stairs coming down from 40th floor, from 60th floor. You imagine that. In this pandemic, condo is not a suitable residence style of the resident. Okay, it's not suitable. Okay, the most affordable housing with private, easy for the builder to build was a stacked townhouses. They could have
Ms. Zhang, your time is coming up. Your time is coming up. Just
okay. I will be short.
please wrap up.
So do I have 1 minute? So I will say,
No, I don't have the
private
time.
entrance stacked townhouses is our future. So we should have the ability to attract people to move to Richmond Hill, because we can tell them, because we in this crisis, we have the lowest death rate, we have the lowest cases in Richmond Hill. Attract them. We call the Richmond Hill. We should be spiritually and financially rich and live happily forever on this hill. We call this Richmond Hill our home.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next is Mr. Jason Cherniak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Cherniak.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm speaking this morning as the lawyer for the Young Bernards Residents Association. I'd like to begin by clarifying who my client is. This organization was not formed 3 years ago to oppose the original secondary plan. It was not even formed after John Lee individually joined the LPAT hearing as a party. The YRA only began to form last April 2019 after Council adopted a motion to increase heights and densities in the KDA. Council then rescinded that motion and sought an adjournment of the LPAT hearing. The residents cooperated with the city and even brought the motion to adjourn the hearing. This is not a group of people who oppose all development. It is a group of residents who worked constructively with the city last year and were concerned about a change from the original secondary plan. Ultimately, the end result of the new plan is not what they expected. The residents thought that the staff, who originally proposed 8,000 to 11,000 residents and jobs with maximum 15-story buildings to spread those people out, could not possibly come back with something significantly different to recommend. It was not until late February of this year that a plan was finally proposed, and it was shocking. Somehow, since 2017, road capacities increased by as much as 42%. That's on page 54 of your traffic report. Saturation flow on regional roads went up 5%. That's on page 73 of the traffic report. The number of stories in a building were no longer limited at all, and the number of people and jobs went up by 33%. When considering these recommendations, remember that they were based on Council's request to consider greater heights and densities, and it's from the May motion of last year. This was not staff coming up with it on their own, it was under direction. Mr. Mayor, these significant changes go beyond anything proposed by the landowners in the KDA before last April. Many of them have now increased the heights that they are requesting since they first appealed. Council has every right to support increased development, but to do that, Council is required to follow the Planning Act. Normally, when a secondary plan is proposed, there is a process to follow that includes a statutory public meeting. After that meeting, residents who make submissions can appeal to the LPAT. They then have rights to be heard. After those hearings begin, the parties can reach settlements. You would normally expect that it will be something a little bit more than a municipality proposes and something less than the developers proposed. But that's not what's happening here. Instead, Council began a completely new secondary plan process. The difference from the Planning Act is the council claims to be doing this as part of the LPAT process, instead of holding statutory public meeting as required for an official plan amendment. In reality, what you're being asked to do today is repeal the secondary plan passed in 2017 and adopt an entirely new secondary plan. Yes, the residents do have a right to speak, but they do not have a right to appeal as they normally would. And that means the residents other than those I represent. So where does this leave us? One possibility is that whether you call today a statutory meeting or not, it has the effect of a statutory public meeting. Any of the 60 people making submissions today might have a right to appeal the decision. And if they do, there's going to be a significant delay. The other possibility is that today's proceedings are contrary to the Planning Act, and any adoption of this secondary plan would be contrary to law. If that's the case, then my clients are likely going to bring a motion to determine whether today's decision is valid. And again, that could lead to further delay. I know we're all in the midst of uncertain times. There are landowners who legitimately want this resolved. I promise you that my clients would like nothing more than for you to reject today's secondary plan. And I also promise you that if you did that, the landowners would be very unlikely to want to proceed with a 7-day hearing starting July 2nd. Everybody knows that if this matter is contested, it will take at least 3 weeks, precisely as it was scheduled a year ago. So where does that leave us? Right now, the LPAT seems to be holding those 7 days in July. After a conference call with lawyers last week, the LPAT also asked all lawyers when they're available for a 2-week hearing after June. We still don't really know what's going to happen in July or if it's going to be extended. Ideally, my clients would like to see the city adjourn this matter before council until after the emergency is over and they can exercise their freedom of assembly.
1 minute.
Not including the lawyers, there's a full 56 written submissions against the secondary plan today. Imagine if those 56 people plus hundreds of supporters were standing in council chambers before you. And ask yourselves whether you might be tempted to go back to your instinct 1 year ago and reverse course from higher buildings and densities. Maybe you wouldn't be. Maybe your decision would be exactly the same. But at least the residents of Richmond Hill would have a chance to participate in the council meeting. At least there would be, beyond those making delegations, at least there would be a fair planning process. At least nobody could accuse this council of rushing forward in the middle of a state of emergency. If you do not want to completely adjourn today's motion, and if you go ahead and pass it, then I would at least ask you to instruct your lawyer to not try to start a 7-day hearing on July 2nd. Instead, try to use that LPAT time to mediate the outstanding issues with developers. Over 7 days, you might have even more settlements. In the meantime, the residents will have a fair chance to get their lives back to normal. And then, if necessary, they can pursue their legal and planning arguments at the LPAT. I submit that this would be a fair manner of proceeding for all parties concerned. Thank you.
Our next person is Wen and Sue. I hope I pronounced it right. Yes?
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, councilors and mayors. I'm a resident of Western Westerbrook nearly for 10 years. I lived here and I enjoyed the environment and everything here. But I witnessed these areas changing more and more crowded. And I read your plan, and it seems have good vision and can provide a more affordable housing and the job openings. But my concern focus on 2 aspects. From my personal experience, I can feel the traffic is the heavy traffic from the Brookside to Elver Mills. I think it's not a long way, but sometimes it takes me a very, very long time, you know. And I witnessed several accidents there during these few years. And the other aspect I concerned is community resources. I have 2 kids here, and I registered them for the community programs at the first day of opening of that registration. But you know, it's very hard for me. Most of them are just in the waiting list. I think the frustrator and the facilities here is overburdened. So I don't think it's a good idea to there's your plan is that we hold nearly 10,000 people here. So I strongly against your plan. That's my point. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you very much. I am muted. I am. Yeah. Who is muted now? Me?
Dave, you're muted.
All right. I'm there. Somebody say something. Everybody just looking. Can you hear me now?
You can be heard.
Thank you. Okay. I'm just going to leave it on. Okay. Next person is John Alati. Let's hope.
Yes. Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. My name is John Alati from Davies Howe LLP. Our firm is counsel to Young MCD. Young MCD, as you know, is the owner of the lands in the northwest area of the Young Bernard KDA. A large portion of my client's lands holdings lie to the north and west of the KDA, and they are within an area the city approved a tertiary plan for some time ago. The tertiary plan lands, which are owned by my client, are subject to a phase 1 draft plan, which was approved in a decision issued by the LPAT last month on April the 17th. Our client worked cooperatively with staff to achieve a mutually acceptable phase 1 development on the tertiary plan lands. As part of the phase 1 approval, a new public road, Street A, which will connect to Young Street north of Naughton, and which will form the new northern edge of the KDA boundary on my client's lands, was agreed to. Our client's plan overall, both within the KDA and in the phase 1 area, provides for a large linear park and a significant dedication of lands to the TRCA. Young MCD is presently in the process of finalizing and clearing its draft plan conditions so it can commence construction of its phase 1 lands approval. Young MCD has had an opportunity to review the staff directions report as well as the draft secondary plan, which staff is recommending the council endorse. Our client has been working diligently, cooperatively, and closely with staff for the last many, many months, and is now comfortable that the proposed secondary plan will accommodate the form of development concept which my client can and will build. Several meetings between city staff and my client and its consultants have resulted in a modified iteration of my client's proposed plan for its KDA lands, which the city planning, transportation, urban design, and park staff have indicated is acceptable. My client intends to locate 2 towers, one of 21 stories and another of 37 stories, south of the new Street A within its KDA lands. These towers will respect the angular plane policies the council is proposing be employed to determine height within the KDA. They also will meet the density which is being set out. Young MCD's concept plan for its KDA lands results in a built form which is compatible with its approved phase 1 development, and it achieves a built form and density which is appropriate along the new BRT line proposed along Young Street. Young MCD is therefore requesting at this time that council adopt the staff recommendation on the secondary plan as it relates specifically to the Young MCD lands. As you are aware, my client filed a private application, OPA and zoning and draft plan for its lands back, and its application was deemed complete in 2016. We would ask council to direct staff and its legal counsel to have Young MCD's applications supported by the city, and dealt with at the LPAT at the earliest opportunity. I thank you for your time today, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Lottie. Any questions of? I do not seeing anybody with any questions, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you. I'll
we
take.
shall- Thank you. All right, our next delegate. Yes, thank you. Mr. Aaron Platt, Davies Howe. Sir. There you are.
Unmuted, I believe. Thank you, Councillor Silvitz. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Aaron Platt, and I am of the law firm of Davies Howe LLP. We are counsel to TSMJC Properties, Inc. It's the owner of the shopping plaza known as Upper Yonge Place, located at 10909 Yonge Street. My client's property represents a large percentage of the land area within the KDA and is frankly the single largest parcel within it. I am before you today to speak to a very specific set of modified and entirely new policies outlined in the directions report for this matter. Those policies are 12.4.2.3 and 12.5.5. Both of these policies specifically target my client and my client only for the supply of all of the land required for the creation of a new bus terminal to service this key development area, the broader areas of the city and the region. Currently, the only land under the public control for the existing bus terminal is the driveway that wraps a portion of the northwest corner of my client's site, essentially at the southeast corner of the Yonge and Bernard intersection. The text of the secondary plan currently provides that if my client submits any development proposal applications, the city may require my client to file additional planning applications. The clearly stated purpose for this requirement, as contained before you in the report and the draft policies, is to allow the city or the region to obtain all of the land needed for the regional bus terminal without any compensation or accommodation of any sort or amount. The proposed policies, though, take matters a step further. They suggest that my client could be forced into what would effectively be a joint venture with the city or the region, requiring my client to construct a development on its lands that would include a bus terminal. In such circumstances, such multi-party planning, design, engineering, and construction efforts would be significantly more complex and time-consuming. Even in such cases, the land required for the terminal would still have to be delivered without any compensation or accommodation of any sort. I'm not aware of any cases where a mixed-use project, which includes a significant local and regional public infrastructure project, is simply imposed on a single private owner without any appropriate compensation or accommodation. Rather, public authorities generally negotiate with the proponent in a reasonable manner, including by bringing some form of equity or significant accommodation to the table. That's why these projects are often colloquially known or described as partnerships. The need for fairness and equity is entirely absent from the policies before you today. The proposed form of the secondary plan identifies the policy direction, the current recommendation before you would have the city impose on my client what could amount to millions of dollars of lost land value and additional soft costs and other expenses, again, without any compensation or accommodation whatsoever. This is for what the plan itself acknowledges is required to, and I quote here, ensure that the planned infrastructure required to support growth within the KDA, not specifically my client's land, is achieved. Obviously, the fact that this is a regional bus terminal means that the terminal supports region-wide goals and objectives, and not those singularly attributable to my client's proposal. Put simply, this approach is just unfair. It fails to appropriately balance the benefits derived from this public transportation project for the broader KDA, the city, and the region, with the entirety of the burden and obligations hoisted singularly upon my client. The policies don't even attempt to balance this. Apologize, I'm having a feedback loop here.
Okay. We can hear you fine.
Sorry, my apologies.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any policies within the city's official plan where the city requires a single owner to carry a similar burden for a regional infrastructure project. Now, the Planning Act allows the city to impose conditions to the approval of a plan of subdivision or consent that are reasonable, having regard to the nature of the development itself proposed for the subdivision. This has been interpreted and upheld numerous times to mean that the condition must satisfy a four-part test. It must be necessary, it must be relevant, it must be reasonable, and it must be equal. And while the new terminal may prove to be necessary and perhaps relevant, the type of conditions contemplated by the policies before you are certainly not reasonable nor equal. There have been numerous examples in the past where similar attempts have been made and they have been rejected by various tribunals and courts. I'm here today with a request. I do know that the city, through its staff, advisors, and consultants, are aware of a variety of mechanisms that could balance the proverbial scale. What I'm asking from your worship and members of council today is the following. Strike the problematic and unfair policies as they currently exist from the proposed secondary plan. But at the same time, direct staff to work with my client and, if or where applicable, other stakeholders to develop a reasonable and equitable policy modifications to address the potential land taking currently contemplated by the plan. Subject to any questions council may have for me, those are the balance of my comments this morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. Please stay safe, and stay healthy.
Thank you, Mr. Plath. Same to you, sir. Any comments, questions at this point in time? Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question through you to Mr. Platt. Has the region in any way offered any compensation to your client for the land that would have to be taken away in order for that bus terminal to be constructed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to my knowledge, the region does not yet know what land it even requires at this stage, or the design of the terminal or the routes that the buses would need to be taking through my client's land. And the policies before you today, I would submit, imply that they could take all of it without any compensation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Or accommodation.
Or accommodation, okay. Thank you for that clarification, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions at this point in time? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Platt. You too. Be safe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next delegate is Ryan Goiter, Western Consulting. Sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Your Worship, members of council. Ryan Goiter here from Western Consulting, and I'm here on behalf of Young MCD, one of the landowners in the northwest quadrant of the KDA area. I will supplement John Eladi's remarks very briefly and endeavor not to repeat some of his comments, but ultimately the extensive work that has been done over many years to get to this point is key to the advancement of the development of the lands. And as you heard from Mr. Eladi, phase one approvals were granted. There is a provision of a public road that extends along the north boundary, together with a suite of policies that we've had the opportunity to review carefully with staff. There's been extensive discussion, dialogue, participation in some of the public engagement sessions. And certainly my remarks are rather simple, and that is we do believe we've now come to a concept plan that would be implementing the policy principles that are set out in the recommendation report, as well as the secondary plan and zoning bylaw that staff are seeking endorsement of council for. And we are supportive of that. We're supportive of the principles. And the recent concept does provide for a height and density regime and setbacks, provision of angular plane, and other matters that are consistent with the principles of that plan. So we're keen to see the matter advance and would seek council's endorsement of the staff recommendations, and also ask that council direct staff to continue to work with us and our design team in furthering the phase 2 hearing site-specific instruments that are to be taken forward. And that would be our request, that we continue to work through that with staff based on the principles of the staff recommendation. So with those comments, we're appreciative of the effort by all here, and would look forward to council's endorsement, and happy to answer any questions as they arise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gorter. Does there anyone have a question for Ryan? Mr. Gorter, sorry, question? Yes, Councilor Munch.
Good day, thank you. I'd just like to ask, with regards to your road on your client's land, is that designed for right in and right out?
At the present time, the details of that, as I understand, are conceived of as such, notwithstanding the design detailing of that road is the subject of further submission materials in light of the conditions that were set out in the phase 1 hearing. So there are a series of matters that still need to be determined and finalized in relation to that road. But the principle of the road itself and its consideration, I think, was set out as part of the phase 1 hearing, and the current proposed secondary plan seeks to implement that in a similar fashion.
And is it your position as a planner that it is good planning relative to the traffic flow that you know from York Region, that road should be right in, right out? Or do you believe it should be going, we should having more roads throughout the Yonge Street corridor and having more lights throughout the community?
Okay.
I think I would suggest that, obviously I'm not a transportation expert by any means. I would leave that to those professionals. It's my understanding that there's been active consultation with the region, with transportation staff of the city, and also our transportation engineer has weighed in on that as it pertains to our site-specific matters and the composition of that road. I think there's some variety of interest and stakeholder inputs that would form the basis of implementing that road as it relates to Yonge Street and the interface there. But I would not be able to comment from obviously a transportation specific perspective. From a land use planning perspective, I do think it is appropriate, and we're in support of the composition that's set out in the secondary plan as identified.
Have you read the LPAT ruling that came out with regard to your client's lands?
Indeed, I have.
And does it say anything about right in and right out in that judgment?
I don't recall off the top of my hand what the specific reference is. I'd have to pull that out for context.
Okay, it does have a frame of reference.
Okay, sir.
Anyways, just
get answers, please.
Thank you. That's good.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with anything? Mr. Gorter? Okay, Mr. Gorter, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And our next is John Lee. Sir?
Good morning.
Thank you.
Mayor, and can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor Barry and the council. My name is John Lee. I live at 206 Brookside Road. During the past several days, Councilor Parali and I have several email exchange regarding the Young Bernard KDA revision plan. Now we finally agree that Bernard KDA density will beat Young Eglinton KDA. However, we have only one BRT station. Everyone knows it will not be an equivalent of the mobility as an anchor harbor at Young and Eglinton for our KDA. Young Eglinton is very high level anchor hub, so Bernard KDA will never reach this level. Remember, the Bernard KDA density was based on average condo size of 1,184 square feet planned. Everyone knows today the average new condo size is less than 800 square feet. It is such a simple but magic number, give the developer the opportunity to build 2,500 more units on top of the proposed 5,000 units. This will create a density of 880 people and jobs per hectare, a national density record. By the way, York region requires 35% affordable housing in KDA. How could this almost 1,200 square feet condo affordable? This is a very serious question. Why can't we correct this obvious mistake? Because the consequences are not affordable for the city. If we use 800 square feet unit to calculate gross floor areas, then the proposed FSI must be reduced to 2.99. Remember, the previous KDA plan in 2017, the FSI was 3.4. It means after a year of expensive professional work, the revised plan dramatically increased the height density. However, the intervention indicator FSI decreased rather than increased. This is against common logic. Remember, both plans come from the same project team. This is not just embarrassing, but this mistake will cause the entire KDA plan collapse. This is the plan today we are voting. Yes, we propose over 5,000 units for people. Did we plan the environment for people to live in? Where is the parks, schools, and public facilities for over 5,000 families that will live here? Now, to achieve the original density, you have cut almost all the public use land that is essential for a healthy community. If we use the 2016 census data, this KDA nominal population density is nominal, can rank the top 5 highest population community in Canada. Last night, I saw Councillor Moch respond to a resident and claim the 41-story height is a rumor. The height is listed in the April 2nd KDA draft revision memo released by city, and it was set as confidential. It's the transparency of this process caused this rumor and misunderstanding. Most important, the provincial and York region never asked Richmond Hill to process such additional density. In 2019, last year, this KDA area, the York region only proposed a third as we propose right now.
1 minute.
Okay. Today's vote remind me about a Chinese story, calling a deer a horse. In ancient China, there was a powerful and evil prime minister named Zhao Gao. Zhao wanted to rebel, but he didn't know how many members in the court would support him. One day, he presented a deer as a tribute to the emperor and said that was a swift horse. The emperor said, no, that's not a horse. And then Zhao asked the court, is it a deer or horse? In the court, those members who didn't dare to against him said, yes, it was a horse. Those who dared to follow the truth said, no, it's a deer. Later, the members who said deer was killed. Today, after so many discussion and summation discussion, does everyone know that the average condo size of 1,184 square feet is wrong? Yes. Does everyone know this KDA plan is wrong? Yes. Well, we are voting right now. This is a live story of calling a deer as a horse. It's sad. After 2,200 years, and mankind had progressed to a democratic society, today we are still seeing this calling a deer a horse story play again.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, your time is...
That today your vote will be recorded in history, for better or worse. The future of
Okay.
Richmond Hill is in your hands. That's
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
thank
your
you.
time. Yeah, no, thank you. Any questions, questions? Members of council wish to make? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
There's nobody's asking out for it. All right, our next delegation is Simon Shu, is it? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
His microphone's on, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry?
Oh, here he is.
Okay. Morning, sir.
Hi, morning. Hi, this is
Yeah,
Simon.
please go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Hi, can I share my screen? Please provide me the rights to share my screen.
So, Mr. Mayor, our rules were very specific that
Yeah.
that's not permitted.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
come on. One person, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mayor, and Deputy Mayor, and councilors. So my name is Simon. I'm the resident of Richmond Hill. I'm living in the Jefferson community, which is only 1 block from KT environment. So we, the KT neighborhood residents, so we support health development. Number one, we never object any reasonable development. On the contrary, we encourage all healthy development in our community in Richmond Hill. So KTA development plan must be designed based on a reasonable foundations and must be sustainable for long-term strategy development instead of short-term, for example, 4-year terms, right? So we care about our community development. We participate in our community buildings. We cherish our homes. We organize different community activities for our seniors, for our children, for women and families in our community. I work differently with Councillor David West for our senior programs as well. So you can count on us, right? So we did contribution a lot of things for our community. When the COVID-19 hit, our KT residents, including Jefferson community and also the Oak Ridge in the Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 4. So we all contributed cooperatively with our city mayors, our councilors, and our communities to organize different meetings, donate medical materials, including masks, facial shield, hand sanitizers, and medical caps for hospitals, for our city halls and police department, EMC services. Special thanks for Councillor Godwin Chan, also Castro Liu, also our Mayor David Barros to organize those events. It's great. Thank you so much from the residents of Richmond Hill. And why today we stand here? It's because we love our community, right? So we are designing a KDA plan. It's our core development design plans. As residents of Richmond Hill, we all love our community. We want to do our best for our peoples here. Therefore, we oppose the world development that sacrifices the future of a city for the benefits of the present, and that sacrifices the interests of our residents. We want a balanced and reasonable KDA plan, not for a short term, like a 4 years term solution. City plan development staff did propose over 5,000 residential units for residents, but did they plan the environment for the people who live in as well? Where are the planned parks, schools, parking spots, etc.? And that's also essential services for a health community. You agree with that? So please also consider the pressures on our health system. For example, EMS, education system, police forces, firefighter department, and also other public services, right? Can they support these new demandings as well if we have another 5,000 new residents into our city? So from 2012 and 2018, York region had a 25% reduction in traffic accidents. It's great, but Richmond Hill traffic accidents has increased by 13% as well. The Bernard KD area traffic accident raised up to 12 to 17 times for the GTA. compared with Richmond Hill average without adding the new residents. On the parking land per capita in this area is low in the GTA. We have around 9 meters squares per residence. Toronto is around 28 meters squares, while in Richmond Hill, it is only 16 meters squares. Consider that adding another 11,000 residents, but only provide 1 square meter parking land for all the residents here. This will driven the parkland per capita to the lowest in GTA.
1 minute.
According to the school resource in Richmond Hill, by adding another 11,000 residents will require another 2 additional schools, but there is nothing on the plan to address that requirement. Richmond High School, right, is already reached up to 165% of its capacity. This infrastructure shortage can be further expanded to hospitals, fire stations, parking spaces, police officers, police forces, community resources as well. So due to the time restriction, I'll not go in details, but again, we love our community and we support health development, but we don't want to support an obsolete wealth development plan that's going to ruin our future for our community and our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any comments or sorry, never question, sorry. Deputy Pirelli, questions for Mr. Chu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I just wanted to ask, Simon, are you aware that a lot of the things that you were commenting on regarding schools and police and the likes, this is a secondary plan. Those details that you speak of come out through the development process. So this secondary plan is going to be around for 50 to 70 years before all of the targets, the big numbers, the 10,000, 11,000 residents and jobs per hectare are going to be implemented over 50 to 70 years. And throughout that process, are you also aware that if we don't have enough schools and if we don't have the infrastructure, none of this will be built? That's all in the report. Are you aware of that? That this is not something that's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. This is a long-term plan.
Yeah,
Just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
I'm thinking the same thing as well, because we are building up a KDA as the kernel development area plans, and look at the overall, right? We have to consider the balanced development plan across all our essential services, demanding for development only from the building perspective. Meantime, we should consider other facilities, right? Schools, educations, first, police offices as well. So I want to say long-term instead of short-term, because it's clear, right? Not only for short-term, it's long-term. And I want to add another thing. Look at around areas.
No, and Mr. Chu, I just wanted you to be aware that the types of things that you say are not contemplated and addressed in the secondary plan are in fact addressed, but they're addressed at the next stage. This is just like a drawing on a napkin. It's an idea for the general area. Those details, nothing will be built unless schools are addressed, parkland is addressed, police are addressed, infrastructure, water, sewers, transportation, walkability, all of those things. Just wanted you to be aware of it. Please stay safe and all the best to your family. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, our next is Mark Flowers, Davies Howe, with regard to Richmond Hill retirement, etc. If I may, thank you, Mark. Mr. Flowers, sorry.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm a lawyer for the owners of the Richmond Hill Retirement Residence, which is an existing 5-story seniors building at 70 Bernard Avenue, which is in the northeast portion of the secondary plan area. I filed a written submission with the city clerk yesterday, which I hope you all received, and I believe it was identified as correspondence item D. and I hope you have it handy as well, because I will be referring to some of the figures attached to it. This morning, I'm going to be making one and only one request of council in respect of the staff recommendations in the directions report. Namely, we request that you reject staff's proposal to modify the secondary plan schedules, which would redesignate the northern portion of 70 Bernard Avenue as Greenway System. Just by way of background, in May 2019, so this time last year, this council endorsed a settlement with our clients regarding their appeals of the secondary plan and related zoning bylaw. That settlement was based on acceptance of a concept plan for a new 9-story building, a retirement residence building, to be located in the northwest portion of the property. And that building was to include a 5-meter setback from the north property line adjacent to a fenced drainage channel. A copy of the site plan for the proposed new building that formed the basis of our settlement with the city is attached to our submission for your reference. Of note, city staff supported that settlement, it was endorsed by council, and it was confirmed that the proposed new development would not require any modifications to the council adopted secondary plan. As adopted by council in November 2017, the secondary plan did not designate any portion of 70 Bernard as Greenway System. Rather, the Greenway System designation was located north of our client's property and north of the secondary plan boundary. And we see that very clearly on figures 1 and 2 of our submission, which are schedules 1 and 3 of the adopted secondary plan from November 2017. Thus, we are not asking you to change something already in the council adopted secondary plan. Rather, we're asking you to reject staff's recommendation to make this proposed change now to the adopted secondary plan. The local planning appeal tribunal accepted the settlement in a decision that was issued just last month, in which it approved the KDA zoning bylaw for our client's property on a site-specific basis. In its decision, the LPAT confirmed that in order for the proposed development to proceed, no change, and I'm quoting, no changes are required to the secondary plan and no amendment to the secondary plan is being sought. So with that as background, we were quite surprised that less than 1 month after the LPAT's approval of our client's settlement with the city, staff is now recommending that the secondary plan schedules be modified in such a way as to redesignate the northern portion of 70 Bernard as Greenway System. And we see this specifically in figures 3 and 4 of our submission, which are schedules 1 and 3 from the proposed secondary plan schedules. In the directions report at page 39, staff responded to the concerns raised by the landowners in the Northeast Quadrant regarding this proposed Greenway System designation by stating as follows. The Greenway System is identified in the in-force Part 1 official plan, and the area in question is designated natural core in the official plan. Well, in fact, the Part 1 official plan does not identify the northern portion of 70 Bernard as Greenway System. And that's clearly shown on the excerpts that we've included as figures 5 and 6 of our submission, which are schedules A1 and A2, or excerpts from those schedules. It clearly shows there is no Greenway System designation on the south side of this drainage channel in this location east of Yonge Street. And in fact, that the KDA boundary extends right up to the south limit of the water course. And so accordingly, we request that City Council direct staff to remove the proposed Greenway System designation from the northern portion of 70 Bernard on all of the secondary plan schedules as proposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Any questions of Mr. Mann at this point in time?
Yes, please.
Sorry, where am I? Mark Flowers. Sorry, I'm at the wrong end of this.
Yes,
Mr. Flowers, go ahead, Mr. Much.
Good day, Mr. Flowers.
Hey.
At least a couple questions. Does your development have shared private access with others?
It does. The current building takes its access off of Bernard, and there's a private driveway for the lands to the west, known as the NEC lands. And my understanding is that there's an easement over that driveway that services basically our existing development, and the building as proposed would likewise retain that access.
And is that noted in your letter?
I don't believe it's noted in the letter, no.
And there's no greenway access to your knowledge to the lands to your west?
no greenway access.
Linking your site with the site to your west, NEC land specifically? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure I follow the question. As I say,
is
right now, there's no greenway designation on the lands. It's proposed to be shown by way of modification that staff is recommending to you today.
So if there's greenway to your west, so this is where I'm trying to go. If there's greenway to your west, do you expect the greenway to stop at your property? If there's no greenway to your west designated, then okay, but
there shouldn't be any greenway designation at all. Again, if you look to the Part 1 official plan and you specifically look at where the greenway designation is shown on schedules A1 and A2, there is no greenway designation east of Yonge Street. So that includes the property to the west. It includes our client's property as well.
That's why I asked you the first question when you said you didn't, that's where you're going now. So agreed 100%. So if there's no greenway designated, I fully understand where you're coming from and I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor DePaul, or sorry, Councillor Pirelli. I got a little, go ahead, sir. My apologies.
No apology necessary, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Flowers, my question is, since LPAT has already adjudicated the matter for your client, and there seems to be a contradiction, it is my understanding that there's nothing going to stop your client from developing as they planned, regardless of the commentary in this secondary plan. Would you agree with that?
I would certainly like to hope that's the case, but of course, what the LPAT approved is a zoning bylaw. They approved the KDA zoning bylaw on a site-specific basis for clients' lands. And I should note, I didn't mention before, that zoning bylaw provides for a 0 setback from our north property line. Our proposal is to have a 5-meter setback. What we require, however, before we would be able to proceed, and our client would like to proceed, in fact, we've already had a Zoom meeting with city staff indicating an intention to file a site plan application. That site plan application is going to be, of course, circulated to TRCA staff, among other agencies. And there is a concern that we have that if the lands are now going to be, the northern portion to be designated greenway system, that whether it's the city or the TRCA through the site plan process may seek to move that setback even further. I can tell you, given that it's an existing site with a 5-story building, you obviously have to have proper separation distance. We've talked to our architect and he said, you can't move that building further south. Basically, if it gets moved south, it kills the project. And again, this is a project for, right now, the existing building is independent living. The proposal is to add assisted living and memory care. Obviously, I'm sure all councillors would agree, a very needed type of housing in your community. And because of those components, it'll also generate employment within your community. So I think it's something everyone should try and make happen. I don't believe city staff is trying to in any way preclude that from happening, but there is a concern with this proposed designation of greenway that it could have some impact.
Mr. Flowers, in the limited time between the time that you sent the letter, I did reach out to staff. I have assurances that throughout the whole process, there is no intention to try and stop your application. As a matter of fact, the full intention is to work out the housekeeping details regarding this and make sure that that very needed assisted living housing is going to take place. And you have my personal guarantee that I'll do everything possible, and you have, I think, staff's guaranteed as well. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to hear that, but as I say, nonetheless, then to give the added level of comfort, I just don't see the need here or the appropriateness for proposing now at this late stage to designate a portion of the lands as greenway system.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the comments.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to talk to Mr. Flowers? Okay, seeing none. We now move forward. That is the last of our, make sure I'm right, Mr. Clerk, on our 12.6. Yes, it is. So we now bring forward 12.6 as the item that we will be dealing with here at this point in time. There's still 2 or 3 other things in this thing, but this is 12.6. And just so everybody is aware, and I did talk to members of council, or gave them the information that I am going to step down from the chair here and ask our Deputy Mayor DiPaolo to take over my place. And I wish to, once if he's prepared to do that, sir, then I have some items I want to make, and I want to bring forward a motion here. So if I am, do I need to ask permission, Mr. Clerk, or I'm just handing it over to him?
Well, happy to assume the chair, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So as you separated out this item, and we've heard the delegations, now I'll give you the floor back to address this Bernard KDA item.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. And I just want to say this has been a long time, and many people in various stages of where they are in the program. And certainly it was actually almost a year ago and a day last year when council asked planning to rework and or change or the areas secondary plan matters and subsequent bylaws. And originally to come back on April 22nd, as we know, but we moved it back to this day so that staff could continue the discussions that they're having with a number of the parties involved. And I think that's the most important thing. There was also not necessarily a clear direction from LPAT as yet there at that time when this was coming forward. Staff was working toward the July 2nd start date, and that was in place. So I really think that this has all impacted everyone registered in the LPAT, the residents, the lawyers, a number of consultants, as we've seen and heard this morning. And they're all representatives, all of the registered people that were here today. So we've now got the staff report that we asked for. SRPRS 20058 is now in this agenda, and it is seeking direction from council regarding the resolutions of the appeals up to the KDA, the secondary plan, and the zoning. That's what these are, as Councilor Pirelli said. These are large programs that we're dealing with, and it's not somebody's sidewalks or anything, not to belittle some of the questions we had. So at this point in time, I'm truly of the opinion that we knew, and I am going to move the recommendations for the 20058 directions report for Yonge Street, the Bernard Key Development Area, city file, and the 2 file numbers. It's a piece, it's here, there. I'm going to move the recommendations that are on the report that we asked for. I think there's opportunities here that we can make do and at the same time work together. A direction from council on the secondary plan and bylaw, which we've just done for today, in order to have the city have a position when we go to LPAT on July the 2nd. And that's the motion, which would be reported out to the LPAT on May the 13th. That's the next, so in accordance with the LPAT direction, staff will continue to work with all the parties. This is my opinion and how they're asking us and what they're sending to us. Even the council, after council adoption of the revised plan, staff continues to negotiate and potentially resolve a lot of issues with the applicants and the parties at the start of the hearing. I truly believe that by moving forward with the report that staff brought to us, I think that there's a lot of things, and we've heard a number of them already, that can be dealt with and worked with and clarified. I think true also needs to be. So that is my motion. And I just want at this point in time to bring it forward. And I'd ask for a seconder. And so that's my point. I'm moving that motion, sir. If the Deputy Mayor Paula, I'm back. So if you want to give it back to me at this point in time, or whatever your wishes are.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second your motion. I'd like to relinquish the chair back to you, and the clerk can put that motion up. And I'm happy to second this. I agree with you in all respects. Our staff have done a really good job here. They've in a short amount of time, they've accommodated council's request and direction to come back with a proposal for the Young Bernard KDA that's more acceptable to all the stakeholders. They've done a lot of work in consulting with the residents, ratepayers, landowners, stakeholders, everyone affected, the region of York, and we have a good plan on the table that our staff can defend at LPAT, and I'm hopeful that LPAT will support it, and I'm happy to second it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now looking for. Now, don't forget, I can only see half of the screen because the motion is there. So if somebody wishes to make any comments at this point in time, I would need somebody to call out their name, please. If anybody wishes to make any comments, this is before us at this time, moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, I will speak when the time is appropriate.
Okay. Well, this is it. I don't have anybody else who wishes to speak at this time anyway.
Okay,
but that is the motion that's before us, Councillor West. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Before I begin, I would like to just first of all start by thanking the people that have come out and spoken. Was an enormous number of letters, and we had a fair number of delegations, and I thank them. A lot of those people are the same folks that I've been working with now for about 5 years on this, and I have to say that they really have a good understanding of what's before them. They have certainly come a long way in the 5 years that this unfortunately has been going on. And I think a lot of them would probably expecting that after 2017 they would be done, but they're back again, which I find unfortunate, but I do thank them for all of their work. So I supported the 2017 plan, and I think that plan was a good compromise. It created something that not all the folks that were involved from the community were all that happy about, but I think at the end of the day, it was a good compromise, and it also covered all of our obligations to the province and the region and so on to accommodate growth. So I supported that, and I still support that today. And I think that I would like to see this motion before us right now not passed, and I would be more than happy to move to continue with the direction of the 2017 plan, which we could then support as our position at LPAT. I don't think that the plan that's proposed before us is necessary. I think it's too big. I think it's too high. I think it's too dense. And as somebody said earlier, there has been no significant transportation or transit projects announced between when we passed the 2017 plan and today. So I'm not sure, I'm completely unconvinced that this plan over any timeline that's reasonable anyway, will be able to be accommodated with regard to that infrastructure. The other thing I find interesting is that when council supported the rescinding of the 37-story motion that kind of came out of the blue about a year ago, we voted to rescind that. And the reason that I would have given at the time that we rescinded that motion was that the 37-story motion was unreasonable. Well, this motion in front of us is actually even more dense, and in some cases at least as high, if not more high, in terms of building heights than the 37-story motion. So I'm not sure why we would all of a sudden be supporting the motion that's in front of us. The KDA in the Young Bernard area has always been and is in the 2010 official plan to be the smallest of the 3 KDAs. If we do what is in front of us today and move this and pass this plan, and LPAT ends up going with our recommendations and goes ahead and passes it, I really question how that will fundamentally change the whole structure of the official plan. Because if 41 stories are allowed at Young and Bernard, it will have an impact on any of the other densities and heights in any of the other KDAs, and also in the corridor areas in between the KDAs. I find this troubling for a couple of reasons, but one of them is that the official plan review is underway. And if we make this decision today, we are in effect taking away the public's input because in the official plan process, because this plan will dictate and predetermine what we do in other parts of the official plan. So I am concerned that we've got the cart before the horse. It was mentioned about parkland. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that the delegates have said today and have said to us in the letters and have said over the past. And I won't repeat all of them because I think they've been stated very well. There's not enough parkland in this plan. And with the increased density, we actually have less parkland designated in this plan than we had in the 2017 plan. Yet we have more density. And if nothing else, the COVID-19 situation that we have in front of us right now has shown us how valuable people see parkland as. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that that will not be something that continues on into the future. One of the other things that I will say is that the 2017 plan, one of the benefits was that it did give us some affordable housing. But the problem with this plan is it's so big. I actually think that we're going to find, and Councillor Pirelli actually said this, that this could be a plan that takes 50 to 70 years. If that's actually true, because the heights are so high and the market probably won't take this up very quickly, it could very well mean that any affordable housing or a significant amount of affordable housing won't be built under the proposed plan. But in the 2017 plan, I am fairly confident that a number of those buildings might have been built in the not very distant future. So I probably have more to say in the second round. I think I'm probably out of time, but those are my at least initial thoughts. And I would ask members of council to defeat this motion, and I would be more than happy to bring forward a motion upon its defeat that allows staff to go back to the 2017 plan, which, by the way, was recommended by staff and is defensible. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead. Councillor Munch. Okay, and Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead.
I don't really want to go in camera, but I'm going to say this, and if you as the chair or the members of council wish that we will, we'll fine. I'll start here. We received a in-camera report on April the 16th, 2019. And I think although I can't speak to the comments in that, unless I'm going to leave it back to the chair to go back in council, I think it's disingenuous to not say, as members of council, not let the public or give the public a direction that we know better as council members. So I'm going to go to the chair right now to ask, Chair, do I need to go back, or do we need to go back into council to see what was given in legal advice to us on April 16th, 2019? Because there's been some comments about what our legal position is and what staff's position is. And this report that was in front of us also makes very good clarity. And I find it disingenuous in a public forum that this is under, that we have now made a statement that we have a position. And I don't feel that that is absolutely correct, given the in-camera report that we have. And I asked the chair, either do we go in camera so members of council can, again, read what staff's legal opinion is on what we are doing at LPET and why we move forwards, because comments are being made that are disingenuous to where we're going. And I believe it's prejudicial, certainly to me, when some comments were made, and I either want clarification on that in camera, or we need to make clarification in public, because it's disingenuous to the public.
Okay. Okay. The purpose of this is to seek directions for council. That's what it is. Council
there's been comments made.
So they're here before us. That's how I see it. So I don't know that we have to go into camera.
Then I would ask the chair.
The direction is before us.
Then I would ask the chair and or the Ward 4 councillor to careful on the language that we know as council. If they're unaware of what our legal position is at the City of Richmond Hill, based on this report was done on April 16th, then I'll give them that due. Then I ask that we go back in camera and we read that report, which I'll gladly provide if you're not aware of it. But I think it's disingenuous to say to the public in open.
Okay, you keep saying that. So
it's up to you. You say, sir. Either we go on camera and we go through it, or we get clarified now. It's your choice.
well, I don't see. The purpose of the staff report is to seek council direction. So the recommendations are the ones that I have put forward as the directions that we're asking them to take. So I don't understand what could be different. We were dealing with it like a year ago, and then we were dealing with it in 17. I don't know what discussion or what you're thinking.
The Ward 4 councillor made public statement right now.
Mr. Mayor, if I may respond to that.
If in fact it's about Councillor West, I'm going to let him respond, okay?
Thank you. I don't appreciate the comment about disingenuous. What I've said is my opinion. It is my opinion in my job as a councillor. It is the way it's what I think, and it is after doing all kinds of research for the last 5 years. If it's inconvenient for your argument, Councillor Munch, I'm sorry, but that is my position. Okay. I would state that in terms of going in camera, it is my view that all of the information that is available right now is all public. It's all a public document. This is not a court case, LPAT. It's a tribunal, and that all will be happening in open session. So I don't see the need to go in camera based on anything that I've said or anything that we've discussed up to this point. It's obviously up to council, but that is my position.
Okay, then I see no reason to go into.
So I asked, did we receive an in-camera report on April 16th, 2019?
April 16th? I have no idea. Okay. I can go through.
Well, I think it's important that
I don't have it here, that's for sure.
On April 16th, 2019, council received an in-camera report as it related to our position at LPAT. And the councillor just said now, and you as chair also said you're not aware of that. And that has long-standing clarification why motions and why we're here today. And if the ward, you said yourself you're not aware of it. The Ward 4 councillor said he's not aware of it. The Ward 4 councillor has also
I did not, point of order.
He didn't say he wasn't aware of it. Okay.
Well,
no, I don't.
Public. It's not public. It's not public. The Ward 4 councillor said that all information is public. That in-camera report is not public, and it is prejudicial.
Mr. Mayor?
But it is an LPAT. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would caution all members of council that they should not be discussing matters that were previously considered in-camera sessions. The confidentiality rules always apply, so I would just caution the member not to be discussing what may or may not have happened in closed session. Thank you.
So that's why I'm suggesting we go in closed session so we can discuss it. Can't discuss it openly. It clearly exists that it's public knowledge that there was something in camera on that day. You know, it's not public. The Ward 4 councillor said all information is public.
Okay, never mind what he's saying. You're trying to say there's a document somewhere that we should see. That's what you're saying. And it's what? That's okay. And it was, I guess it was active at the LPAT. I don't know. That's what I mean. We're getting too close. I don't think, no, I'm not going to say we need to go into camera, sir. I'm going to.
So just so we're clear that there was an in-camera report.
That's my ruling, though.
Okay.
We're not going to go in camera.
So then I'd like to challenge the chair, and I'd like a recorded vote for everybody so we're clear on this. There was a in-camera report on April the 16th.
Okay, you're challenging, sir.
Yes. So.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So as I understand it, Councillor Munch is challenging the chair's ruling that there is no need to go into closed session. Accordingly, if members agree with the chair that we don't need to go into closed session, you'll vote yes. If you disagree with the mayor, you would vote no. So Councillor Munch.
No.
Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Mayor Barrow.
Yes.
Councillor West. Councillor West.
Yes.
Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Councillor Chan,
Yes.
Regional Local Councillor Pirelli,
Yes.
Councillor Silovitz,
Yes.
Councillor Barros.
No.
The chair's ruling stands.
I didn't hear from Mr. Pirelli. Did he vote?
I did.
Yeah,
I missed checking him off. I'm sorry.
yep, there's 9 votes taken. Okay. Next I have oh, sorry.
Okay, so thank you for that. We just wanted clarification on that because clearly.
Okay, fair enough. It's over. It's over. So what would
moving
you
on.
like
So
to bring to the table now?
So we have this report. I thank staff for putting the report forward. It's been great progress. The record stands for itself. If we can be open and transparent, which is where I'd like to be, and I try to be on a regular basis without going into other things, fine. This report has dramatic effects to east of Yonge Street. West of Yonge Street is a open space. East of Yonge Street has commercialization, and the ramifications of traffic, roads, heights, managed densities, TDM measures. As after that in-camera report that was brought forward in March, we moved a motion that was passed by council that brought in a balanced report of saying we are okay making this a key development area. That was done in 2010 before my tenure. And we are okay with transit supportive development. We're going to embrace provincial policies. It's unfortunate that east of Yonge Street is burdened now within this report with roads that all stakeholders east of Yonge Street, every single property owner, which represents over 60% of the KDA, is opposed to this plan as a result. They're opposed because of the traffic. They're proud because it's inconsistent with what has been approved by staff and by LPAT, yet we have in this report green zones that shouldn't be there. Tried to work with some members of council to find a balance, and clearly there wasn't an interest by members of council to try to work on a balance. So if we want to go spend literally millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to go back to a plan, fair enough. I say to the public, the record will speak for itself down the road, and the concern of housing affordability, the traffic chaos that's going to affect the people east of Yonge Street because they're moving traffic from Yonge Street and west of Yonge Street over to the east of Yonge Street that is already overburdened. The fact that we don't have that Elgin Mills Bridge or advocates as was designed in other motions, love to see the record on that. It's a very large concern when we say to the public that we want to have a livable, vibrant area.
Yes, how is he dealing, sir?
Mr. Mayor, my point of order is that we have a motion before us.
I know.
And if we could stick to the motion, and just for the record, Mr. Mayor, I'd like a recorded vote when the time comes.
I would agree. Okay.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Go back to the motion, please.
So we're at 5 minutes.
Yeah, what is our timing here too? Sorry.
That is 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
Did that include our discussion earlier about going into camera? Because I don't have that on my clock.
No, it didn't. We did. We paused. As we always do, we paused the time when another member was speaking or when the vote was taking place.
Either way. Okay, so then I'm going to say to you, welcome back for a second round.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
We'll do that. Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would just like to thank all the members of the public who've sent in an unbelievable amount of communication through email and letters to members of council and the city. It's quite remarkable. I counted in my last estimation, it was nearly 80 letters. That is amazing. I don't recall another time that such an amount of, a great amount of communication from the public has come in, other than when we were dealing with the David Dunlap Observatory lands and perhaps 360 Kids and the hub and maybe the beginning discussions of the KDA at Young 16th and Carville. So I also want to thank all the members of the public who spoke here today on the Zoom meeting. I commend you, because it's difficult enough sometimes to speak in chambers. We know that, and speaking here on Zoom is perhaps even more difficult. So thank you very much for your courage. It's greatly appreciated. I want to also thank the legal counsel and planners who stepped forward from the other side, so to speak. Your comments are very important to all of us. I want to thank staff. Staff have presented to us today a remarkable document. Whether I agree with it or not, it is a remarkable document, and a directions report in order for our staff to go back to LPAT and be able to continue the arguments. Notwithstanding that, I support Councillor West in this, and I cannot support what is before us today. There's a number of reasons. I've also made public a statement through social media, and I stick to everything I said on that. This is not so much, as far as I'm concerned, it's not so much a philosophical argument as it is, in my opinion, a moral argument. And when you refer back to statements made by members of the public, specifically Ms. Zhang, who made some very, very good points about over accommodation in this particular area. And I couldn't agree with her more. And specifically now that we are in the COVID-19 public health emergency, I believe everyone has become far more, it's become far more apparent to everybody about what it means to live so closely and so densely. And that does require our attention as well. So I don't know if that will receive any attention when the LPAT discussions continue, but I believe it behooves everybody in those discussions to really look at it, because we do live in a different world right now. And when you look at what's going on in the microcosm here in Richmond Hill and the super microcosm of the Bernard KDA, it becomes very apparent that over accommodation and overpopulation can actually be more harmful than good. We also have a serious problem with parkland here, and that is one thing that is absolutely necessary. And I don't believe, again, with all respect to staff, it's not addressed appropriately. I'm just looking through my notes here. What concerns me here as well is that we are currently going through the protocols and procedure to review and revise our official plan. The official plan is responsible for overseeing land use planning throughout the entire municipality.
1 minute.
Thank you. Should this particular KDA, in the directions report, what is being asked for here, if this is approved through LPAT, we're going to have a secondary document which will actually sit and on top of a primary document and perhaps guide that primary document, and that can have extreme negative ramifications down the line. And I'm thinking to the KDA that is located at Young, 16th and Carville. So as the Ward 5 councillor, I need to make that apparent as well. So again, this matter is before LPAT. July 2nd, it is supposed to go back to LPAT. I find it's unfortunate that LPAT has not decided to delay everything until there can be better public consultation and participation in person as opposed to in camera in this respect. So thank you, Stephen. Unfortunately, I cannot support this. And in this particular respect, I absolutely stand with the residents because I believe they need that voice. And I want to thank Councillor West for all his discussions with myself. He has proven to be a remarkable friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other people that wish to comment on the motion before us? please.
Second round, please.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to figure we finished the first round. It appears we finished the first round. Okay. All right, we'll go back. Councilor West, you were looking for start first round, second round, I mean, sorry. And then Councilor Munch.
Actually, I will defer till later. I think it's been said up to this point, but I'll put my hand up if I feel there's another need for me to speak.
Okay, Councilor Chan, you put your hand up, sorry? Okay,
yes,
you go
I
ahead
did.
now.
Well, actually,
Okay.
I thought that Deputy Mayor Pirelli put up his hand one time.
Well, I'm asking
anyway,
you,
so,
sir. I
now
just saw it.
speaking.
I asked if
That's
anybody
fine.
had
Yeah,
a comment, so please
I am speaking.
come forward.
Okay.
Come forward, please.
First of all, I like to thank the staff. It's certainly someone was saying remarkable report, and I thank everybody participates. The public, particular, who been named it that well, not named it, but saying that the volume in terms of the emails and letters and even the under challenging circumstances making the video presentation dedication today. And I have to say, I really struggle on this particular subject and topic. And I would just like to touch on the motion that, Mr. Mayor, you move on. I find it, while the report is certainly looking at quite, I would say, creative from the staff perspective, consulting with the number of the stakeholders. I have to say this for the record is that I find that the one way to look at it is courageous, is that a number of subject matters are really precedent setting. Number one, it was put on page 27, policy-led height regime. And if I understand the report correctly, that's never been done, at least not in Richmond Hill. It's interesting, minimum height would be set, but nothing else. Number two is also about the certification ownership. And I refer it to page 37. Now, obviously it opens opportunities, particularly transit oriented development. However, there are risks. I have not seen the report, the assessment of the risk. Is there opportunities? The third item is on encroachment. It's kind of related to it. Now, these are the kind of things that precedent setting, and I honestly see the ramification only not for this particular KDA. It would be for, I think some members talk about it, KDA in other areas. And what does that mean? It certainly seems to be a shift in thinking. And now a lot of people talking about the traffic, and I'm sure that, Councilor Munch mentioned it, I understand where you stand, based on what I'm hearing. And the report, it does say have a ring road structure. Now, I have read quite a lot of reports over my tenure on council. I have not remember reading so many qualifiers. As staff, I have to give them credit on the transportation, and you can refer to page 22, 23, 24, and so on. And it's talking about traffic is qualified by, at least three factors, which I don't need to mention here. One is just not in detail, but just saying the transit mode split has to be a certain level. Number two is have to be widening of buffers, and you even mentioned Bayview in terms of trying to balancing, some of the expected infusion of traffic, whether it's even bicycles, even these pedestrians, and so on and so on. And the third is also the road structure of the region. The 10-year capital plan have to be completed. So it's so much about talking about management that has to be phasing and monitoring, as well as it has to talk about holding. Now, I give the staff credit for really being cautious, putting in all those things. And the other things that I turn to, I know my 5 minutes may be up soon, is everybody talk about height and density. And I think to the extent that 3.84 on the face of it, it's not really so too high, so to speak. But also, I think we're talking about a long high Yonge Street that is really talking about 5.0 or close to it. So I'm just highlighting at this point in time, the first round, my concerns about those precedent setting. We have to think very seriously about what does that mean? Not a one-time thing, but what it meant. And thank you for the time, and I hope to have a chance to come back on the second round. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues, and thank you everyone participate, the public, the stakeholders, and the staff. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to make a first comment at this point in time? I don't see any, so we will go back to our Councillor Munch. You were a second timer here. Go ahead, sir.
So we have last year in May 2019 approved a budget for our parkland and our DCs, and we are under 50% over the last 3 years, under 50% as a municipality under our budget. Godwin Chan, Councillor Chan of Ward 6, just said that he prefers more to go on Bayview or Bathurst. It's funny that if we want to promote transit and we're saying to the province that we want a subway, I guess we don't really want that, because we should be promoting density where density is supposed to go. And there's some parties that may misunderstand. We have 2 key development areas, Richmond Hill, no more than that. There's a Richmond Hill Center. That's not Richmond Hill's KDA. So in case anybody's unsure of how many KDAs we have, there are 2. We are concerned about housing affordability. It's in our official plan. This report brings in to say that the people east of Yonge Street, with every single property owner east of Yonge Street and representing 60% of the KDA, are opposed to staff's plan. Residents are opposed to staff's plan. The report, which was clearly done on April 16, 2019, that we put passed by council. It's interesting to see that some members of council don't want to support that today, where we talked about supporting housing affordability and supporting transit and supporting TDM measures, which includes green initiatives. I think it's unfortunate that we don't want to promote that, because there's nothing in our bylaw in this report that demonstrates that today. So what was approved on April 16th, what was removed were those conditions to allow for transit supportive housing affordability, green space initiatives, in exchange for, as the one of 2 members of council who voted with Councillor DePaula, only Councillor DePaula and myself were the only 2 that voted against the May report that asked for more heights and densities. For the record, I voted against, and the only member of council voted against the 2017 motion. Why? Because I don't believe it's a responsible plan. I said it then, I say it now. There's documentation to show that as well, both in this report and given the provincial legislation. So given the fact that seems like the west of Yonge Street wants to bring traffic supported development and bring roads into the eastern part that are not welcomed, that are not supported, and every single property owner east of Yonge Street and the many residents, I have visited every single home at least once, up to 3 times in the last 3 weeks in that area. And I've gotten private communications and emails. And I say this report has become progress, but really short when you're talking about housing affordability, increasing gridlock into communities, having an east-west linkage loop road into a residential community is not acceptable to the residents of east of Yonge Street. And the residents have clearly told me that they don't support that. The property owners have told me they clearly don't support that. And I find it very unsettling hearing some of the things I've heard from some members of council and what I've seen over the correspondence over the last few weeks, given the facts that we know and the responsibility of making sure that we meet housing for the needs of the people of Richmond Hill today and tomorrow, that we create housing affordability and resident people where they can actually rent. This proposal will only delay all of that and will have ramifications. So I cannot support the staff's recommendations. I really did want to support it. I worked very hard to try to make it happen, but members of council who they are chose not to want to support a transit supportive, housing affordable, focused development approach.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not finished, but thank you. If you'd like to communicate, Mayor, go ahead.
No, I thought I heard somebody say time up, but I didn't know what it was.
1 minute left, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, okay, go ahead.
Apology
That's
accepted,
much.
thank you.
Yeah.
So we need to, as this council, are going to be in real trouble if we don't start meeting our budget criteria, meeting the housing affordability, unless we want Airbnbs, unless we want basement apartments, unless we want development on other corridors like Councillor Chan has suggested. I would suggest to you that we should be promoting good quality planning. We should be working with our partners, and we should be working in the best interest of residents long-term. This report unfortunately falls short of that, and I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See no one else. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? Go ahead. Councilor DiPaolo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I did want to say that, this is going to be very, very good for our official plan process that's going forward. But this is a decision that has to be made now. We're down the end of a long road. There's been a lot of public consultation on this KDA, and I just don't support moving. I don't think the residents on Bayview want to have more housing on Bayview Avenue. I don't support moving to other corridors. I think we have to stay the course with the corridors and centers that have been allocated to absorb the housing growth. So I think it's important that we move forward with this KDA, and our staff's done a great job. And I don't want to reopen trying to create densities in other corridors. Yonge Street is the place for it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone have any other comments at this time? I can go back to.
Mr. Mayor, I'll speak again if that's.
I was just going to say, yes. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Okay, so I appreciate the conversation and the debate. That's what council is all about, I guess. I just want to clarify a couple of issues that I've heard. I actually do think that there's no question in my mind that we need to grow, and the official plan shows where we're going to grow. And I have no doubt that if we follow the official plan as a template that's, I think, served us well over the last number of years that it's been in place, and possibly do some minor updates to that to, increase levels to the levels that we are obligated to meet from the province and so on, we can meet all of the targets that have been mentioned. Affordable housing, we can absorb all of the growth that we need to absorb within the KDAs as listed in the official plan. And we don't need to be going to put growth in areas that we aren't currently designating for significant growth. That's not the point here. The main premise that I want to be crystal clear on is that this plan is bigger than the 2017 plan. And I find that any of the benefits that we would get from growth can be achieved within that type of framework. And the fact that this is bigger does not necessarily mean that it's better. And it's, in my view, in the research that I've done, this plan is bigger and denser than is necessary. I mean, we can still meet all of our growth targets and build a vibrant community by building smart. And right now, what I'm concerned about is that this plan is overachieving, and we will not get brownie points for overachieving. But more importantly, I don't think that we'll be building the kind of vibrancy or achieving the kind of benefits like additional, more affordable housing. We would have been able to achieve that, and we will be able to achieve that within the framework of the official plan, generally speaking. This is predetermining what some of the decisions are going to have to be in our official plan going forward. So I'm worried about that, as well as I'm worried about all of the implications for the immediate area. So I I guess at the end of the day, we talked a little bit about public consultation, and I don't disagree. We've had certainly tons of public consultation up to 2017, and a fair amount of public consultation between when this particular phase of the plan started and now. But if you look at page 16 in the staff report, and I won't go into details of this, but if you look at that, there's a graphic at the top of the page, and it talks about what the landowner appellants want, and underneath what the residents want. And it's actually quite sad, the number of decisions that this plan reflects that are completely in line with what the landowners would like, and that's fine. But unfortunately, and the thing that I'm having trouble with is that almost every single category in that graphic that the residents were looking for has not been satisfied. And the problem that I run into, I think, if you boil all the stuff down that I've heard from residents over the years, this plan is not consistent with the vision that people have in moving to Richmond Hill. And I want to be clear, that doesn't preclude us being able to grow in an appropriate and vibrant way. And that is the crux of why I have a problem with this. This does not match what we as elected officials are being told by our citizens. So those are my comments. I guess that it is what it is. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Chan, yes.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say for the record, make it abundantly clear, I have never said move the intensification onto Bayview and Barfus, as some members are saying. I was only referring to what they report on the staff on page 23 and a number of other places. In order to be supportive of the traffic situation based on the studies, there are three must things happen. And one of the must is talking about the modal ratio. And the other one is talking about, it is in the report, I do not create that, widening of Barfus Street from Major Mac to Gamble Road. This is in the report. So I want to make sure that it's not, will be mischaracterized or misinterpreted. I'm only relating to what the report said. In order to allow for the support of traffic, those three must have to be set. Now, I will get to it, that as I said in the beginning in my first round, I'm really struggling on this particular support or not of this motion in front of us, because I do see the, I use the word courageous and creative approach by the staff on this. But I have to say at the same time, I'm troubled by the precedent setting of the things that I don't need to repeat myself on the policy-led height regime, certification, traffic. And I can see that their development could be beyond, in terms of height, the specific number of stories that is set in the 2017 plan. However, to be completely open-ended, with only setting the minimum height and not have other criteria that set out for how are we going to deal with considering the density, considering build form, considering other things that's to height. I really have lots of trouble because it opens up, I don't want to use the term floodgate, but as a precedent setting, that probably could be the kind of criteria to be used in the future, not just for this KDA, for maybe for any other brand application coming through our doors. So I would have to see something different than what is in front of us and improve upon the 2017 plan. But I have to say at the end, I have to say I'm not prepared at this point in time to give my complete full endorsement of this report. So thank you for the second chance, second opportunity to clarify and specifically clarify what I said earlier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for my colleagues, and thank you for everyone, staff, and particular public who have come out to really pay attention in the last few years on this.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilor Pirelli, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I as well want to thank everyone involved in this process. It's been a long process, Mr. Mayor, as we all know. And it needs saying again that there's never going to be an ideal situation where we get 100% support from 100% of the participants. I think, Mr. Mayor, quoting you in the past, and I agree that sometimes the compromise is that either you can call it not everybody's happy or not everybody's miserable. Everybody walks away from the table. What I am delighted to hear through this whole process is that staff have brought this resolution very much closer than it was even several months ago, with all of this consultation that has taken place with stakeholders, with residents, and more importantly, Mr. Mayor, with the professional staff at the region, professional staff from the province, all done in consultation with the Places to Grow Act, the provincial policy statement, and there's a list of other legislation that was all taken into consideration. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership on this, for stepping up and making the tough decision to advance this process forward, because as Deputy Mayor DePaula said, we are at the tail end of this, and so much money has been spent trying to get the right decision. Are we 100% there, Mr. Mayor? Absolutely not. But I know, given the proper direction as you've suggested today to our staff, that they will bring us that much closer to resolution, moving forward in good faith. You heard the comments, Mr. Mayor. This is unprecedented times in more than one way. You're hearing lawyers for applicants saying, we're working collaboratively with staff. Yesterday, I heard on non-related issues, the public saying, we're so pleased to work with the City of Richmond Hill staff. And I think one of the most important principles, and I hadn't given it much thought till it was mentioned by Councillor Munch and defended by Councillor Chan, of course, and Deputy Mayor DePaul as well, that when we back this up and think about how we got to where we are today, it's because we have spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in transit infrastructure to put this height and density on major transit corridor, Yonge Street. Then we went to further depths, Mr. Mayor, to say, okay, we're not gonna have a free-for-all on Yonge Street. We have to decide where we're going to have the intensification with a rationale. And the rationale was, okay, create key development areas. And we did. I wasn't part of that process, Mr. Mayor. The key development areas were chosen a long time ago, well before I got on council. But I respect the decision. I respect the millions and hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars spent on this. And more importantly, I respect those residents who bought on Bathurst and Bayview, on those areas, knowing full well that all their hard-earned tax dollars were going to be spent on creating the major transit corridor along Yonge Street. And it would be very sad, Mr. Mayor, to now say, hold on a second, we're not going to build on Yonge Street, we're not going to intensify in our key development areas.
1 minute.
The only choice that it leaves, Mr. Mayor, is that we're going to start intensifying on Bayview and Bathurst. And I cannot support that, Mr. Mayor. This infrastructure is definitely not there. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to our Commissioner of Planning, I have a few questions.
Okay, can we get Mr. Kwan hooked up?
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there is.
Commissioner, it's been brought up that some of the people feel that we needed more time for more consultation to come up with a better answer. What is your opinion, having the experience that you have regarding that? Have we had the proper amount of consultation, and are you satisfied that you understand the position of all the stakeholders?
Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm certainly satisfied that we've conducted a fulsome public consultation process. I believe we've responded to each and every inquiry. We've consulted with all public agency partners, city consultants, as well as the stakeholders and other landowners and public interest groups that have had an interest in this project. So the report and the findings and recommendations are before you today, and I think they are reflective of that public consultation process and all the forward thinking that staff have put into the project, and all in anticipation of the July 2nd start date for the LPAT hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any reservation in your mind that we should somehow get further consultation, do further studies, consult with further professional experts? Is there any reservation in your mind when advising this council that we should do something different than what you've recommended in your report?
That's 5 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't. The report speaks for itself, and certainly staff stand behind that report in its entirety.
And last question, if Mr. Mayor will indulge me, I apologize. Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Commissioner, we understand from the commentary that was made by some of the applicants' legal representatives that they're pleased with the report. And they're also pleased with the fact that the city has been working collaboratively with them. Do we have, as a council, your assurances, your guarantee that you and your staff will continue to work towards more resolutions and settlements as it pertains to this key development area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff will certainly, you have my assurances, continue to work with all stakeholders to refine the issues, if possible, that were identified today. And by virtue of recommendation D in the staff report, that is council's endorsement of that authority to have staff to continue to discuss these matters with all stakeholders.
So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to close by saying thank you to the commissioner, thank you to all staff, thank you to all the stakeholders and the residents for doing this, and you have my support, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Let's see anybody else. I just want to make a couple of comments before we presumably call a vote, Mr. Clerk. I think if you read the A, B, C, D, E, and E is very much so there, that every time that there is a revised secondary plan and implementing zone, which is what the commissioner will be doing and the staff will be doing, it also deals with a proposed modification to the Part 1 official plan. So official plan is not being avoided totally. It's being a part in each and every one of the recommendations. The fact that the official plan as set out in Appendix C will be attached to this. So there is some movement on the official plan. So it's not being left behind. And I think we have to know that. And I also think too, just based on your last question, my thought was exactly the same. In accordance with staff will continue to work with all the parties and further scope issues with the objective of streamlining the whole process here. So I think the commissioner has certainly confirmed that's what his role is going to be should we approve this report. So without anybody's hand up at this time, could I ask Mr. Clerk, I'm assuming somebody wants a
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Pirelli, I did ask for a recorded vote earlier.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the staff recommendation as moved by yourself and seconded by Regional Local Councilor DePaula. Regional Local Councilor Pirelli.
Yes.
Councilor Barros.
Yes.
Councilor Chan.
No.
Councilor West.
No.
Councilor Munch.
No.
Councilor Liu.
No.
Councilor Silovitz.
No.
Mayor Barrow.
Yes.
Regional Local Councilor DePaula.
Yes.
That motion fails to carry.
Okay. So that has left the room on this basis. That was the request that we had of our staff. If we're turning down our staff's report to us, what is the next steps that, I guess, the point of view of Councilor West, you indicated that you wanted to bring something forward. I don't know how you're going to do that at this point in time. This is a report that we asked for. It's been turned down. It needs to be another report that's brought forward, but I don't know where we are with this. So I would suggest that if there is a staff report that wants to come forward dealing with this, should come through. I don't know if I'm sorry, I'm going to say, if you have a report that comes forward, then I'm just saying at this point in time, the report that we asked for has now been turned down. So as far as I'm concerned, we're moving on at this point in time. You indicated that you wish to, I'm not sure whether you wish to do this, but we don't have a motion in front of us anymore based on the directions for Young and Bernard development era. So I suggest that we just move on to the next items in the agenda.
I would suggest at this point, Mr. Mayor, that we seek the advice of our Commissioner Kelvin Kwan
Okay.
to determine. I agree. I mean,
That's fair. That's
this
a good
is a big
question.
decision. I think it needs to be done properly.
Yep. Okay. Commissioner, you have nothing to take with you to LPAT. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly puts the city in an interesting position. I might perhaps want to refer to our outside legal counsel, Mr. Kustner, to provide some advice, further advice to council as to what the next steps and proceedings are, how we move on from here as far as any council direction.
Okay. Well, at that point in time, we still got, so are we going to go into camera with that information, for that information? Is that the point?
That would be at your discretion, Mr. Mayor.
And your desire, I'm sure. Okay, we have a choice here now. We've got, Mr. Clerk, I also say we have 2 or 3 more items here. Unless we go into camera, in camera, whether we move forward with the last 3 items and then deal with it, go into camera subsequent to that. Because we have to take this down and put it up again.
Mr. Mayor, if members of council want to have further discussions on this matter in closed session, we do have a scheduled special council meeting to occur after this regular council meeting to deal with another closed session matter. You could at this time direct that any further discussions on this matter be referred to that special council meeting to be considered during the closed session portion of that meeting for legal advice or solicitor-client advice and litigation matters. In which case, then we would, assuming a motion like that passes, we would then continue with the items on the rest of this agenda, including the one delegation and 2 members' motions.
Mr. Mayor?
So we would do that now, right? Is that what you're saying? We would do that now and move the request to go in camera to the second meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm asking the clerk here for a second, just please.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that a motion at this time to consider a further consideration of this matter to the special council meeting. If you had a motion to do that voted on, then we would be good to go in that respect.
Okay. I would suggest that's what we do at that point. Councillor Corelli, your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I really don't see the need to move in camera. It is clear that this council has lost confidence in its staff. If we've lost confidence in its staff, I suggest a member of council take over the planning process, move the motion, and defend it at LPAT, if that is the will of council. There is absolutely no point in saying to staff, we disagree with everything you've done and said, but yet give us your opinion, please, on how we proceed next. Mr. Mayor, that is not fair for our staff. So there's no point in going in and asking Commissioner Kwan what he thinks and what our legal department thinks of how to proceed forward. We have lost confidence in our staff. And Mr. Mayor, absolutely no reason. Let's let Councillor West or someone else who voted against staff's recommendation to come up with the plan moving forward and tell us how they're going to defend it at LPAT.
Okay, so the point would be if there was any discussion that we were going to have, it was going to be with Mr. Kushner only. So at this point in time, I agree, because we've lost, as I say, we've lost this. We've got 3 other things to deal with. The other matter is sitting here, and we now have, as we say, I think we need to have an understanding with Mr. Kushner if he's representing us on the LPAT issues that we have and meetings that we have.
Mr. Mayor, there's no point in going in camera. We've lost confidence. This
Okay, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
There's absolutely no point in going in camera and saying, Mr. Kushner, what do you?
I'm not saying there is, sir. I'm trying to say Mr. Kushner will go to LPAT on our behalf. He is the person who goes on our behalf, as I understand it.
Well, who decided that, Mr. Mayor? This council needs to decide that. I think Councilor.
No, well, we've done it.
I think Councilor West should go to LPAT and defend it.
I'm sorry?
I think Councilor West should go to LPAT and defend it, since clearly he's not taking the recommendation of staff. Unless you prefer I go to LPAT and defend it.
No.
Last time I checked, we weren't planners.
No, I agree. That's why at this point in time, usually when there is an LPAT or a board hearing, there is a legal representative for the city. So that's all I'm saying. If that's Mr. Kushner, I'm just saying he'll be the one that would go to the LPAT. He has no direction. He's just going to go. He's got to go and explain what happened. Somebody's got to go.
No, there's other steps in between that, Mr. Mayor. You know that they have a meeting, a telephone meeting on Friday, and staff is going to have to give a position. I feel so sorry for our staff because now they have.
No, I agree. I agree. There won't be any. You're right. They're not visiting anywhere. But the point being is that the direction from council on the secondary plan of May the 13th.
I think Councillor Munch has. I think Councillor Munch is very well aware of all the circumstances better than anyone on this council. I think he's prepared to go to LPAT. I think he has a motion that he'd like to move right now, and that I'd like to hear. Councillor Munch.
I think, honestly, we asked for directions of our staff, and that's what we got, and council decided not to accept it. So therefore, we have no direction to take there.
So if I may.
I will gladly move a motion to go in camera.
Yeah, if I may.
Okay, hang on here. I'm just trying to, okay. The point being is we do have somebody. So the report that right now, what will happen, somebody has to go on Friday and say, we don't have any direction. We don't have any direction on any of these things now.
Right.
That's our answer.
No,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Mayor, I still have.
No, I don't want, hang on one second. I'm trying to find out. Everybody's got an idea here. I'm trying to figure out what we do with.
Mr. Mayor.
What we do with the report that they're expecting us there. So we have to go there and say, we don't have a direction for LPAT at this time. That's what it's going to be.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, that's it. We don't have it. It's gone.
This meeting's not over yet. And you're right. Right now, what we've done today, but that does not necessarily mean that is the only course of action going forward. And I think
Mr. Mayor, it's very clear. I believe I still have the floor. It is very clear what has transpired here today. This council has spoken loud and clear that they do not have the trust in our staff, notwithstanding that they spent millions and millions of dollars preparing for this. Number two, it is more, I see that it has been more important for certain members of staff to vote so that they could get the support of their residents in the next election. That is clearly
okay, that's fine.
Oh,
Everybody's got a reason why they vote.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not done. And I would like to move a motion. If we're all gonna behave and disregard our professional staff, then we'll go with what we feel. And here's what I feel. I feel that Young Bernard should not be a KDA, and I move immediately to remove it as a KDA. Do I have a seconder? Remove it as a KDA. That's what the residents ultimately want, and I say we give it to them.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that if the question cannot be answered in open session, then we'll need to go into closed session. But it was my understanding that this can be, the 2017 plan is an approved plan.
I know, you don't have a seconder. Let's just give everybody else.
I moved the motion. Let's bring back all the residents that were listening in. I'd like to hear from all the residents if they support my motion, because this is what it's about. It's about the residents. Let's move my motion to get rid of the KDA completely, period. It's no longer a development area. And
please.
Mr. Mayor, stop the bleeding of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay, I totally get it. But I'm saying to you, sir, you don't have a seconder for this motion.
Well, hold on, I might have a
bringing forward. Councillor
motion on the floor.
Councillor Silovitz.
Put it on the screen.
Offered us an option. Councillor West is offering us an option. So can I hear all the options and then best determine where we want to go?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I will be happy if I would be happy to seek the advice of staff on the specific wording. But generally speaking, I think that the best option at this point would be for us to go to the 2017 plan, which was approved by council and was endorsed by staff at that time. And that would be our position at LPAT. Now, I'm happy to go into camera if there is information that we need to hear in camera, but that is my understanding of what we should be doing at this moment. And I would be happy to put that out to council.
Mr. Mayor, I still have the floor. It is very important to note, Mr. Mayor, that we cannot go back to the 2017.
Of course not.
Plan. We cannot go back. Staff have already put it in writing, and that's why I didn't want the report to go public. They put it in writing. This is not the new baseline, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, going back to 2017 is playing right into the hands of the developers. They want that because that is so ridiculous that it can't be defended, and they're gonna smash us.
Exactly.
Mayor,
okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Who's in the pockets of the developers?
Exactly.
Oh, excuse me, would you please, Councillor?
We need to go in camera, Mr. Mayor.
Can we have some?
No, excuse us, please. Everybody else is trying to make a comment. Councillor, I'm going to ask if you would just let them make those, please.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
please,
we should say this in open session. We have
you are saying it in open session.
We have no confidence in our staff I move. we
Okay,
go to closed
I
session.
understand it. You've got other people that wish to, nobody wants to go in camera. There was somebody offered to move it if we were gonna go in camera. Counselor DePaula, please.
What would be the
please,
purpose? What would be the purpose of going in
Thank you,
camera?
Mr. Mayor.
I have no idea. So I'm just saying we had somebody offered that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
From
get direction from staff that we have.
Okay, from now on, okay, I'll tell you right now. 12.6 is dead, okay? There's nothing going to be done by it today. So let's move on to 11.12.
No, we have to give.
No.
Why?
Mr.
We got
Mayor,
nowhere to
I
go.
have
Nobody
stated-
wants to go to talk to Mr. Kushner. No one wants to deal with this matter.
Well, I
I
believe
give a
that we need
motion.
to put the
So
motion.
therefore, I
today.
don't know that we
That's
need
not
to
true.
be in camera or we don't need to be in camera. So.
Well, I believe we do. With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, that we need to bring decorum back here. We need to go in camera. We can do it when we do the special council meeting. We need Mr. Kushner to give us direction as to where we stand now. This is
That's
an
what I feel
exceptional
also.
moment,
So if
and
that's
we
the
need
case.
to put that motion forward.
We don't need to listen to staff anymore, Mr. Mayor. We know better.
Okay,
We
hang
know
on.
better. We don't need to listen to staff.
I'm not saying listen to staff. Excuse me.
Please, Mr. Mayor, one at a time.
Yeah, well, I'm trying that.
Okay,
Go
let
ahead.
me go first, Mr. Mayor.
No, you've been first.
We've lost
Please.
confidence in staff. There's no point now.
Councilor Parley, can you just wait till other people have their opinions? And I'd like to hear them all without being interrupted. Okay, please, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor DePaul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. If I could just speak uninterrupted. Nothing on the floor. I don't think we have to leave this issue right now. We've had a vote of council that there are 4 members, 5 members that have some objections, and I think we have to address that and see if there isn't a modification of the staff recommendation or amendment that they could propose. It's surprising that 5 members would vote against without proposing an amendment for whatever obstacles or hurdles they had. I think we should give an opportunity to those members to accept the staff report. We have to give a position. We have to take a direction. Now, that position of staff, 100% as it was rejected by a majority of council. I think we can work collaboratively. I think one at a time we can discuss and put out objections and see if we can reach a compromise, a majority position to give to our staff. We have the full weight of staff's report. We understand what they are recommending, and we just need a constructive discussion with council members that have that find something in the staff report that they can't live with. I think we could maybe begin with Councillor Munch, who seemed to be objecting to some actual meat and potatoes in the report, rather than those that are just objecting in general because they don't want building on Yonge Street. Councillor Munch, would an amendment to the effect of removing a buffer or a ring road or something to that effect?
So how are we going to put all that together?
Well, I'd be happy to move an amendment. I'd be happy to move the staff report with an amendment and give them a position and allow them to go to LPAT with a position from this council.
Otherwise, it's a lot worse for all you people. I'm going to say to you, we're going to get slammed badly.
I agree,
And then
Councilor.
camera report.
That's why I'm saying we need to get there, either with our legal group that was there before or whatever the case may be. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
I think if we go one at a time, we can get there. That's where I stand. I'm willing to support or second a motion that is an amendment to our staff's recommendation that we can live with. But I'm willing to concede to other councillors, and I think as long as we go one at a time, we can arrive at consensus.
But again, Mr. Mayor, as I said,
Mayor.
if I may, that we should go in camera because we require our outside legal counsel, Mr. Kushner, perhaps together with our commissioner, to give us further advice as to where we step next. This is an exceptional moment, and I believe we require exceptional advice.
That is fine. And I agree with you. The fact
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I had my hand
excuse
up.
me, could you somebody just stop? I know you got your hand up. I'm responding. I think that we need to have a legal person there, not to discuss to us what happens tomorrow when the LPAT expects us to be there. That's all I'm saying. Now, however we do that, I think that's what we need to do. So we've got other people. I got a new voice here, Councillor Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would second Deputy Mayor DiPaolo's proposal to try to find some of the sticking points and come to grips with them and move forward with something that we can all live with, instead of going back to a plan that we know we will be crucified with. There's no point going back to 2017. So if Deputy Mayor DiPaolo moved a motion that said we should have members start putting things on the table that we can consider as an amendment, I'd be more than happy to support that that train of thought and action, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we do have then in that case, if you're both there, but we have a mover and a second for an amendment. So what is your amendment, sirs?
Well, that was the point that I just said. I was willing to support the notion that we move forward trying to find the issues that would then create an amendment to the plan so that we could move forward, because we can't just say nothing.
No, I appreciate that. I thought you had something there with yourself. Okay.
No, I don't. I was
go back to Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch.
I think Councillor Munch.
Councillor.
So I'm going to email to the clerk a proposal. This proposal is not a perfect proposal, but it's a proposal that'll get us into a position where we are not going to be slammed, which we will be. So I'm going to send it now to the clerk. Hold on.
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order, if I may.
I'm sorry, we're waiting for this motion to come forward. What? Go ahead. No,
well, it's about that. Prior to Deputy Mayor DiPaolo, with all respect, putting his motion forward, I had already stated that I would like to put a motion forward for us to go in camera.
Okay.
So why does Deputy Mayor DiPaolo's motion supersede mine?
There was no second there, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
was never asked for, Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you. Okay, Jesus, Murphy. I'm saying because there seems to be a sense that there was no reason to go in camera. No one else was discussing it at that point in time. So now these two gentlemen, Paulo and Barros, are saying, let's move forward and let's seek some amendments that we can send forward. So we now have one that Councillor Munch is given to the clerk to be an amendment that we would add. So I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, have you been able to get it so we can see it on stage? Yeah, it is a stage.
Mr. Mayor, I did receive it. I'm trying, I have to make some adjustments to the format or I can't get it on the screen. You'll have to bear with me.
Okay.
Would you like me to send it? Would you like me to send it to members of council, clerk?
Well, we're all going to have to do the same. Well, yeah, we can use our phones.
It's up to you guys. Just
tell us what it is.
This is a roadmap to get us to a place that if we really want to give staff the opportunity, we really want to stop the legal challenge that we're going to get absolutely hammered for.
Okay, just don't, you quit repeating that. Let's get us somewhere.
All right, let me see if I can send it to everybody.
Okay. Are you sending it by email?
I always want to make sure I got everybody okay. Yes, sir.
I would suggest. Keeping on and off here.
It should be on your screen, Mr. Mayor, what I received, just like reformatted it a little.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, wow.
So we're clear, this is not outside of our April 16th approved motion by council. I would hope that staff, and I say I hope and pray, who knows, that staff understand that the April 16th approved by council includes that if we're going to get development, that we promote, TDM measures that,
Point of order.
Where we go.
Can we, why? What do we need? What is he doing wrong here?
What he's doing wrong is he keeps referring to staff. Mr. Mayor, this council made a clear decision. We have
Okay, fair enough.
Staff. Do not mention staff anymore.
Fair comment.
Give me a
Fair enough. Yeah, we got it. Thank you. You're correct.
Who is going to defend any of this at Alpha? Because not our staff. It's not their position.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't do it then. No, fine.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Councillor.
So this
What
says, if
we're
you read, it says that we received the report, we support the report that's brought forward with modifications. So this is an opportunity for us to use our staff, to use our resources, to give a position and to defend. If not, let the Wild West begin and don't come back later and complain.
Oh, that's okay. We're trying to figure out how to get ourselves through this, okay? So it's not a told you so. I think it's here's where we are because we did not take the direction, or we didn't accept the direction that we had. I just got to get this on something that's not my phone to be able to read it.
You'll notice in this information that was sent, it's also consistent with what the delegations, what we've already said with staff, such as the greenway designations that we all say we want to do. We talk about the reality. The question is do we want to go into reality or do we not? It's really the question.
Mr. Mayor, I think that at this point in time that this is not a plan that is cohesive. And I really think that if council feels it necessary to go in camera to discuss this, that I think we should. the 2017 plan was a cohesive plan. I'm not convinced that this plan is any better than what was before us, but I'm also not convinced of procedurally what this means.
April 16, 2019 supersedes the 2017 plan as per the reports that we have, sir.
Okay,
Today's plan supersedes both of those, gentlemen.
Fair enough.
Today's plan supersedes both of them.
yes.
Staff have made it clear. This is their new direction.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. People are asking questions just to see where it fits through. That's all we're trying to do. So please, let's everybody have an opportunity to see. Now, the one that I have here that you just sent me is not nearly as busy as with enough that information here.
It should be the same.
The secondary plan. Okay, I'm sorry. Remove. Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Mayor,
The zoning bylaw. Yep, I'm just making sure I've got it all.
just have a
And then
question, Mr. Mayor.
Resolution of appeals.
I didn't hear
Okay,
you. Carmen, I didn't hear you.
Sorry.
go ahead.
My question of the mover of this motion is, since staff cannot defend this, it's not their recommendation, who will be representing us and speaking for us at LPAT? Will it be you, Councillor Munch? I'm in favor of you taking over the planning process at LPAT with the guidance of our legal staff.
I think the information that's in front of us today speaks of how, and we go in order, that we receive the report.
Yeah.
All communications are received. All delegations are received. That we, council, advise at LPAT, support the proposed modifications of the secondary plan, Appendix A, as per 20058, subject to the few amendments, sir. So the question that you're saying, I know you want to interrupt, go ahead.
No.
No one interrupted you, Councillor.
No, so the question is, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and
The
gentlemen.
question is, Councillor Munch, my question to you is, if we're going to send this to LPAT, who is going to speak on our behalf at LPAT? Because if you're suggesting that, then we need to ask Commissioner Kwan if he's okay with this, because if he's not okay with it, then somebody else needs to go there. Now, I don't know who we would send this late in the game. So
let's ask staff. That's a fair comment. Ask staff.
Well, Mr. Cuzner has been there each time, right? Cuzner?
Yes, sir.
He's our legal person that's there at each LPAT meeting.
So
he
far to my knowledge, everyone I've been to, yes.
Okay, so that's all I'm thinking. So we do have somebody has been through this process and now has to deal with what's happened.
But Mr. Mayor, he relies on the professional staff to give him guidance. He's a lawyer. He's not a planner, not an engineer. He's not an architect. He needs to rely on staff. If the staff can't support this, then who will we be sending?
No,
You may
fair
as well
enough.
send no one. Just let LPAT make the decision. No position.
I agree. Okay, I agree at this point in
And
time.
if we're
If
gonna
that's
do
the
that,
case.
Mr. Mayor, if we're going to do that, then I would move that we just cancel our planning department and save about $17 million a year.
No, let's move on in dealing with
I
this.
think that's reasonable, Mr. Mayor.
I think, in fact, the question to ask our commissioner if this is the direction. So, that's the whole point. We can just turn and say, this is the direction that we are giving you, sir, and you take that to LPAT and you take that through the whole process in the future. It's just different than than his program. That was it. It's a different one.
I would love to hear what our planning department says on this.
We are giving him different directions right now on the screen. Is that not the case?
No.
So therefore, I think it still should remain to be the commissioner, and I think the commissioner's legal.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Who's that now?
The clerk, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay.
I actually would suggest, I'm wondering if, considering how long this meeting has been at this time, if we should give consideration to maybe a 30-minute recess before we take any further action, which maybe will provide an opportunity for everyone to just get a break and figure out how they want to move forward.
Okay. But the point being is that, fair enough, if we want to take that break. I think the point then is also, though, that we are still going to reach out to our commissioner and the legal group that he has with him, whether they're internal or external, Mr. Kostoff again. So at that point in time, when we come back, I would think that we would have a response from the direction that we have chosen to give him on this.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move a 30-minute recess.
Okay. Seconder? Somebody, please second the thing. Yes, thank you. Councillor West, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, this gives us a better chance to read it and understand where we will be when we get back in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Before everyone signs off, Mr. Mayor,
How do we sign in? Coming back.
Mr. Mayor, just because of our technical reasons, we will actually send an email with new sign-in. In Zoom, it'll be a separate meeting, but it'll still be the same meeting when we get back. So you'll get a new email from us with sign-in instructions.
Okay, so our second special motion or meeting will just get pushed back.
Yeah, that was coming after anyways. Once we've resumed this meeting, then we'll.
Okay, so yeah, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Okay.
All right, thank you.